across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and good evening. Lovely chilled out music. Isn't that just a thing of beauty and joy? There's a crackly noise in my ear. That ain't a thing of beauty and joy. Is it playing with the audio? No, goblins. Goblins in the system. That's going to be fun for the next half an hour. Do mind me if my eyes roll in my head and I start to sort of twitch, because something technically is making a very funny noise in my head. And it's making me distracted. Right, I'm taking that out. It's horrible. Let's get away with me to an advert.
Thank you for the generous way you asked the question. I should be careful
housekeeping
here.
there, just as I was there.
The very short answer is I don't fully understand the reasons that I'm in the position I am in, but that is for a separate process for me to try to get to the bottom of. I am, as a human being, I'm desperately sad about it, Mr. Carden. I love that job. I love that institution. I was proud to serve this government and any government that might follow it. I hope I was doing it to the best of my ability. I was certainly doing it as hard as I possibly could. I had wonderful colleagues who I miss deeply. And the issues we were dealing with, and my colleagues are still dealing with, are of profound importance to the success of this government and the success of the country. It's been the proudest part of my career to lead that institution because of their work, not because of mine. And you say kind things about my distinguished career. I just feel intensely proud of the people I've led, and I wish them every success and wish I could still be with them.
Thank you. I remember making calls to the head of the Foreign Office saying, can you get a job for my mate, but don't tell the Foreign Secretary?
I hope I wouldn't have used that. Well, certainly I don't remember trying to get any job for my mates.
Can you get a job? Can you help get a job for ex's mates, but don't tell the Foreign Secretary?
I don't think it's completely surprising that the Prime Minister would be so sensitive about the way in which he was dealing with a member of his senior team, and particularly a Director of Communications who's in minute-by-minute contact with the media, that he would want that kept to a very, very tight group of people at the time. The Prime Minister had received a due diligence report in which the very well-known reputational risks of appointing Mandelson were presumably made clear to him. He had advice on different options for the post. I assume he would have looked at the risks around Mandelson. And maybe he thought, look, this is a very well-known character. I'm making a risk judgment that his political skills and nous in Washington is just what this country needs at this time. And he decided there's not much more that any process can tell me ahead of me making this announcement and making this appointment.
You still there? I am. I felt like I was living inside a bag of Walker's crisps for a moment. Honestly, I was just like, whoa, what is that? I think you heard it as well. Anyway, we sorted it out. New microphone, all done, all plugged in, and I can't hear the funny noise anymore. So we must be onto something. Now, we instead played you a dynamic and exciting clips from the cross-examination of Sir Ollie Robbins by the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, except it wasn't really dynamite, nor was it particularly dynamic, can I just say, because I woke up early to watch it. And if you read between the lines and get the headlines in the newspapers, it sounds like it was a right old barrel of laughs. Not so much, but it did reveal some astonishing things that we are now going to duly dissect just for you, because I'm joined by the greatest scalpel in political commentary that God himself have ever created, Charlie Rowley.
Oh, and they weren't available, so
well, God wasn't available.
So you got me.
I got you instead. Now, this story would have been done to a death. Everyone listening right now is like, yes, we've heard this, yes, we've heard that. Let's go over the top lines and then let's just get in there. So basically, I think the most astonishing parts were, he was quite mild and moderate, actually, but I think there was a glint in his eye when he was like, well, there was a sort of culture of, we've got to get this done. Because essentially, Starmer had just, we'd done it as a fait accompli. I think the most exciting parts were the bit where Simon Case is like, you shouldn't really make a political appointment until the vetting's done. And he's told by Morgan McSweeney, just effing get on with it, get it done. He's got to be in position before inauguration. And then the other bit was a sort of Brucey bonus of let's give a peerage. No, not it became a peerage, didn't it? Let's create an ambassadorial role for my outgoing PR guy. I mean, for the man who said nose is out the trough, end of cronyism and end of the chumocracy, he embodies it.
Absolutely, and that's that final bit that you just said there is why this is such a huge story. This is a prime minister that's come in to say, I'm going to clean up the sleaze and scandal of the past. Don't, we're not going to hark back to that Boris Johnson character that was having cake and eating it, during COVID, breaking all those rules. He didn't have a hand on the tiller. He didn't know anything about what was going on, and misleading Parliament and all the rest of it. And now we've got this prime minister facing a similar scandal whereby he is clearly not in control of the facts as he sees them or as being presented to him or what he believes.
The thing is, Boris Johnson eating cake at 5:05 in an office he was in at 4:30 doesn't threaten national security.
Exactly.
It doesn't jeopardise our most important relationship. And what is the most crazy part? Mandelson was there sniffing around all the highly classified information from the get-go. Before the vetting, before anything, give him access, there you go. And when the files were handed to the FBI very early on in this, I wonder whether the Americans just went, oh my God, this guy is so closely connected with China, don't talk to Britain.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's who knew what when and the briefing, that takes place on both sides. But also it's, the Prime Minister, what is clear from today, the Prime Minister didn't need to know what he claims that he should have been told in order to make that decision. So there were there were parallel things going on here. There was the vetting issue, which is done by UKSV, and what the Foreign Office then ultimately decide, whether Peter Mandelson should have had the top line of clearance or top level of clearance or not. But on the side of that, the Cabinet Office did its own briefing, which that did go to the Prime Minister, which raised the issues of the links between Mandelson and Epstein, which were already in the public domain anyway, and other business and interest.
Well, it was the other business and interest, because what I've gleaned from this cross-examination and various other things that have gone out into the press, Epstein wasn't the red line. It was China, or it was least foreign doings.
Yes.
And I'm pretty certain, I don't know, but I'm just lining some dots here, because let's look at the picture, okay? So, old Mandelson seems to be doing a lot of biz with China, a lot of biz with China. In comes a Prime Minister who wants to do a lot of biz with China. In fact, within the first 6 months of the Labour government, 6 ministerial visits had already happened. He just went over there himself. He's talking about resetting relations with China. He's all over China. Ed Miliband couldn't get enough windmills and solar panels from him. And then you've got the other part of the equation, which is Mandelson going for dinner with George Osborne, and guess what? He loves China. They all love China. It's all about China.
China. Trump. But you're absolutely right. But this is where the former permanent secretary of the Foreign Office, Sir Ollie Robbins, when he was giving his evidence to the committee today, made that clear that actually the issues around Mandelson were not the link between Epstein. It was other things. He didn't, I don't think, go into all of the issues, but it would have been business interest. Now,
it's the sort of connections with Russian companies. That's the new portmanteau for Russian weapons, by the way. Ruppens. Yeah, rubles for your ruppens.
But that's exactly why. Then you've got Sir Ollie Robbins saying, well, okay, when UKSV did their analysis and they don't approve or take away vetting, that is solely at the behest of the Foreign Office. So this is another subcontracted, another agency of which there are very, very few people that go through the vetting of everybody. It's a very, very tight-knit group in order to ensure that a lot of people don't have that information to hand on the people that they've interviewed, because it's a very thorough interview, the kinds of questions that they ask. I can go into it in a bit more detail if you want.
Have you been through it?
So I haven't, but I know people who have.
Yeah,
and what was coming out today?
I'm in the process of doing it myself at the moment. So
Really?
I've only got to like layer one.
Right.
I haven't got to the stuff that makes you sweat.
And that's the thing, because it's very personal, but it's really personal, not to try and catch you out, as Sir Ollie Robbins was saying, but because if you, for example, have taken a lot of holidays to Barbados or to or China, let's say, or anywhere else in between, people will then start to ask, okay, why? Well, do you have a particular attraction to the country, the people of that country, the finances of that country, the culture? What is it then? Because if you are then in an ambassadorial role, like the ambassador to the US, it can work both ways. Okay, you could be pro-China because that's the government's position, but also it means that you're a threat. So it's then, if you have UKSB that says, right, we're actually going to we recommend that actually you are high risk and we wouldn't approve vetting, it is then for the Foreign Office to say, right, what were the issues? Okay, we understand it to be the business links. We can mitigate the business links.
So that's what I think happened.
Yes, and
that's what's happened.
But that's Sir Ollie Robbins' position.
The Prime Minister created a fait accompli.
Yes.
He put that man in position, made it public knowledge. He was already in his terry-toweling dressing gown. He loves a dressing gown, does Mandelson, wandering around whatever sort of marble palace he's decided to buy or rent in the heart of Washington, D.C. He's already got his foot through the door. He's already got the sort of, the gold sign stuck on, his office. It's already seen the briefings and is doing the bidding. It's very difficult then, I would say, for a civil servant to turn around and go, we're now going to undo this. The civil servant's job is government wants government, we'll make it work then. So building, let's say, checks and balances building protections, building mitigations, whatever it may be. The decision, I've always said this, it was Starmer's judgment. Starmer wanted him. What I want to know is why. And I'm pretty sure this all comes down to the Chagos Islands and for relations with China and managing Donald Trump. And they thought the best person to do this is the person who's inside our cartel, who knows all the verse on this. Because I remember when Mandelson first went over, the Americans thought Chagos was a great idea. He was effective.
Yeah. Oh, yes, yeah.
But my question to you is this. Now, when you're elected, you don't have to be vetted. You don't. And I wonder, Lord Hermer, unelected, appointed as Attorney General, Starmer himself, if they were to be vetted, what would people find? They would find barristers who had represented terrorists, that had constantly challenged UK government in court, often pro bono, so not the sort of taxi rank argument, oh, well, you've got everyone deserves representation, no, chosen. You will find, I think, a lot of stuff would be of great concern to our intelligence agencies because you look at policy. The mega embassy, the sort of limitless checks to Beijing, which is no different in my position from where I'm looking at things. It's no more different relying on China to make your windmills and your solar panels in which they can put all sorts of gubbins and gizmos and kill switches than it is going to another hostile power and saying, can I have your oil?
Well, you're absolutely right. And that's why MPs have to have that declarations of interest. They've got those two forms so we can see their business interests. We can see the dealings that they've had in the past in order to ensure that they're not then asking questions in Parliament for cash, for example. They're not taking a backhander to promote a particular cause or company. But when it comes to national security, you're absolutely right. All of this is a bit of a sideshow. The Prime Minister, I think, is up in arms saying, well, I should have been told that the initial stage of vetting by UKSV concluded that actually Peter Mandelson shouldn't have been approved, and then he would have made a different decision. That does not stand up because the Prime Minister, he would never have been aware of that decision because the Foreign Office, who would have said, as Ollie Robbins has said, would be able to mitigate what was actually brought up under the first bit of the process of vetting. But the Prime Minister had all of the other information in his box.
He wasn't born yesterday. He knew exactly who and what Peter Mandelson was, which is why he picked him. It was the Prime Minister's choice. Stop trying to blame everyone else. How many people have now lost their jobs because our Prime Minister cannot turn around? Oh, it was a terrible lack of judgment. But when everyone asked him yesterday, why?
Yeah.
Why? He won't answer it.
And he can't answer it because I think your point is absolutely right. It's also, I think, why did he need Peter Mandelson? He needed him because he was losing people left, right and centre. He'd lost his first Chief of Staff, Sue Gray. He'd lost his Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case. He's just lost his second one, Sir Chris Wormwell. He's lost his Director of Communications, his Director of Strategy, Tim Allen and Matthew Dawes for various reasons. Downing Street is a basket case at the minute in terms of an operation as far as I can see it. And when you are in such a desperate need, going back a step, you've got Morgan McSweeney as your current Chief of Staff who says, we need Mandelson, this saviour, the great saviour of the Labour Party.
We'll sort out the Chagos in America, but only Peter can do that.
Only Peter can do that. And he can sort out the politics as well, because you're not having a great time with your backbenchers. And
don't forget who helped you become leader of the party.
Exactly. So give it to Peter, just get it done. Words that were used in slightly more fruity term from number 10 to put the pressure on the Foreign Office. And that is why Peter Mandelson ended up with that job. The Prime Minister would have known all of those factors.
He knows.
And he can't run away from it.
I knew that Peter Mandelson was a wrong'un. I did.
Yeah.
You know, Mrs. Miggins knows that Peter Mandelson is a wrong, and everyone knows that Peter Mandelson's a wrong, and he's such a wrong, and he's got a nickname as a wrong, and the Dark Blimmin' Prince,
yes.
for crying out loud.
Prince of Darkness. Yeah.
Prince of Darkness. What, do you think that person is like the next blimmin', Messiah? No, come on, he's a wrong'un. And Starmer made this decision. And also, this whole thing with Doyle, I get the impression, because Doyle, it seems to me, got into trouble for campaigning with a guy when it had already come out he had been charged with crimes relating to, I believe was it paedophilia?
Yes, yeah.
And Doyle's argument as well, he kept telling everyone that he knew that he hadn't done it, he professed his innocence. I think that's why Stan went, look, this is going to be a PR disaster, you're my head of PR, you're going to have to go. But then said, feel sorry for you, let's see if we can make you the ambassador of somewhere.
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And that is the culture.
You give someone a golden handshake and a carriage clock, you don't make them the ambassador of somewhere. Like, what you do if you're like a Banana Republic president, all his mates get the ambassadorial roles. But what?
Totally. No, but that is the culture also that needs, reforming in the civil service. In order to get moved on, you end up getting promoted, or you get given some sort of, role, whether it is a head of mission in some lovely foreign part of the world.
Where would you like to be ambassador for?
Oh, well.
Because I think it seems like a charmed life. You get Ferrero Rochers piled up in pyramid formation.
Oh, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say no to that. But I'm well, as you can tell, I spend a lot of time in the sun. So it might have to be somewhere not so sunny. But although I'd somewhere exotic, maybe.
Yeah, you'd want a sort of small island, wouldn't you, without much trouble. You don't want to have to be negotiating war stuff, and you just want to have the cocktail parties and
a quiet life, but flying the British flag.
Yeah,
a nice expat.
Maybe
around.
be like ambassador for like Antigua.
Antigua sounds nice.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
That sounds good, doesn't it?
I've just had a few days in Benidorm, which I know is Alicante in Spain, but they're more.
I would not have you down as a Benidormian.
I love it, and somebody criticised me earlier on this show. Not Dean, I'm looking at you, but someone.
Dean loves Benidorm. Dean
know.
probably would move there tomorrow. Dean would be asking for the studios to be transferred to Benidorm, given half the choice.
He gave me some tips where to go.
I bet he did. Oh, I wouldn't. The sort of places that Dean goes, a nice boy like you shouldn't be trying out those.
Well, there are some places that I'll definitely be going back to. There are some places that I won't be going back to, but which we won't go into. But there are more Brits in Benidorm than I think. It's a very nice
Maybe
part
therefore I think because imagine if the Canary Islands had their own UK ambassador. I'd be all for that.
All for
free the Canary Isles.
I'd support that. Support that.
Right, anyway, so we got a bit diverted there. What do you think about the whole Mandelson foray? Do you think there's an even bigger cover-up taking place? Because there's definitely cover-ups going on, but why are they so needy to cover everything up? Why so many bodies under the wheels of the bus? What is Starmer truly hiding, do you think? Is he going to survive it? 03444 999 1000 is the number if you want to join us on the telephone at some point, or you can send me a WhatsApp to that number or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp on that number. 8722 is the number to send a text message. Write the word talk before you text, put the kettle on, or pour yourself a 3-finger gin and tonic, or whatever is your poison, and I'll see you just after this.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Now, Jules in Bristol has said, talking of Starmer's chum, what became of Lord Ali? Not forgetting his special pass to Downing Street. Looking forward to Weird Al Paul Cox later. I bet you are, so am I. What did become of Lord Ali?
Well, he's still in the Lords, I understand, and he, I think he did have access to number 10 Downing Street, which was one of the original, I think, barnacles on the boat that ended Sue Gray's tenure as Chief of Staff, because she sort of,
Sue Gray got shot in the head.
So, you know, but this is the point, you know, the Prime Minister continues to say, and he had backbenchers that had questions handed to them to say, look, you know, whatever you think about the Prime Minister, even if he doesn't get the politics, he's a man that would never lie. He's a man
who knows process.
He knows process. And yet, you know, the process in every single aspect of running Downing Street is losing Chief of Staffs, he's losing members around him, he's, you know, he's had to sack. You know, obviously, his Angela Rayner's gone, ministers have gone. He was the housing secretary.
Oh gosh, Louise Haigh went.
Louise Haigh, you know, the corruption minister resigned for corruption.
Oh, Tulip Sadiq.
You know, it's all. You know, this is a guy that just. You know, and he basically, what has been found wanting is he's appointed Peter Mandelson far too quickly, which should never have happened, and he sacked his permanent secretary far too early.
I wonder how many people in the cabinet can stomach him anymore, because what we have learned is he deliberately didn't tell David Lammy about his plans for Matthew Doyle becoming ambassador somewhere. Whatever you do, don't tell Lammy. And then Yvette Cooper's learnt this and gone, well, that would be me, and that's gross. You know, she doesn't like it. She's actually spoken out in anger at hearing that information. Then it's been revealed that apparently Ed Miliband had a little chinwag with possibly, I think it was David Lammy, saying, why the heck are they appointing Miliband? This is going to all go horribly wrong. So you'd imagine there's a lot of people sitting around that cabinet right now who are shooting daggers at the Prime Minister.
Yeah, absolutely, because the Yvette Cooper one is an interesting intervention that she made this afternoon, because it was her and the Prime Minister that were sitting down with Sir Ollie Robbins trying to get his side of the story before the Prime Minister ultimately sacked him. And she was brought into the reason why he was sacked because the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary didn't have confidence in Sir Ollie Robbins. And so the whole thing has just blown up because the Prime Minister is, in my view, obviously trying to save his bacon, trying to say, I should have been aware of the one part of the vetting process of which nobody is really aware, but you can't run away from the fact, Prime Minister, that you shouldn't have made that appointment in the first place with all of the other information that you had to hand, and that's the discrepancy.
Like I said yesterday, it's a bit like a drunk driver blaming the car, the white lines on the road, the breathalyzer, the pub, you know, everything, the police car which happened to then come and pull him over. It's, no, you were drunk behind the wheel. You appointed Mandelson when there was a perfectly good ambassador there. But he's done this. He is so arrogant. He is so arrogant, that man, because, like I said, I keep bringing it back to Lord Hermer. I don't think the legacy media ask enough questions of that man. I think he's a ghoul. I think he's an utter ghoul. Not just in the things that I know that he's authored while being our Attorney General, from the show trials for social media posts, that was a Hermer thing. Chagos, well, not entirely Hermer, but Hermer and his mates. It goes on and on and on. And then you just have to look at his back catalogue of the sort of cases he took on as a barrister, and I can't think of anybody more unsuitable to a role as Attorney General, as someone who spent their entire career trying to take down the UK government as a barrister. And now you're the barrister for the UK government. It's a bit like employing Harold Shipman to be in charge of an old people's home.
Well, I would not be surprised now if people are looking into all of the relationships and friendships, not least of all between the Prime Minister and other people that have got now cabinet posts, but what they have done, because all of this relies on the Prime Minister's integrity. That's all he's hanging on for now. He's saying, look, I don't lie. I was Director of Public Prosecutions. I've changed institutions, and I've apologised to the victims of Epstein by appointing Mandelson. He took the decision; it was wrong. He thinks he can just move on from this, but you can't move on when there has been scandal after scandal now, where the rot is clearly set in Number 10, where people are leaving left, right, and centre, or they're being sacked to save the Prime Minister's bacon.
Yeah.
And now it is very much. I think you're absolutely right. It is now up to the Labour Party and to Labour MPs, I think, to really. They've got to crunch time. Let's see what happens in May. The polling suggests it's not going to be particularly good for the Labour Party, but let's wait and see. And I think that would be a moment where Labour MPs have really got to make up their mind whether they can carry on under his leadership or not.
What we have learnt about Starmer from the day he set foot in that blimmin' place, that blimmin' address on Downing Street, from day one, he might not tell lies, but he certainly does not give the entire story. It is lying by omission. It is curating the truth by leaving stuff out. His evasion, when it comes to answering questions, I was so cross yesterday, watching that utter theatrical nonsense in Parliament, because MPs were standing up and their first question would be a good question, but then with all of their puffed out pigeon chests, they had to sort of ask 1,000 questions, didn't they? And they said, why did you do it? Why did you do it? Because here it says that the process... And then Starmer would answer the other questions, but he never once answered the question. You didn't have to make that appointment. You wanted to make that appointment. You're not an idiot. You knew that was an incredibly risky thing to do. So why?
Yep.
And we still don't know. And that, for me, is the Pandora's box. The why is the thing that unites all of them.
Yep.
And all of it. Now, my question to you is, it's known in politics that there's always a group of individuals at the heart around a leader at any particular time who aren't necessarily elected officials. They could be donors, they could be long-term advisors, they could be random people with passes to Number 10. Who are you? But it's not just a Labour Party thing. Let's be honest about that. But focusing on the Labour Party, the cartel that appears to run the Labour Party, seems to be a lot of human rights barristers involved in that. I'm wondering who their pick would be to replace Starmer. Because clearly Starmer's their person. I think Mandelson was a big part of making sure Starmer became leader of the party, which is why people like Diane Abbott had a great turn yesterday, because it was her lot that were essentially booted out, not in cartel. The Corbyn cartel's over here, the Starmer cartel is over here. Now, my question is, when the Starmer cartel has to let go of their puppet, who does the Starmer cartel want to replace him? Because we know it's not Rayner. She's the union's pick. We know it's definitely not any of the sort of former Corbynistas. We can assume it's not Andy Burnham, because Starmer was very quick to jump on that as a possibility of contesting a by-election. So who is there? Sort of, break glass in case of emergency candidate.
Well, that is, I think, the $1 million barrel question, because, you've got, despite all of this that's hanging over the Prime Minister's head, giving him a headache, waking up every day to torrid front pages, headlines that he'd rather not have, there are still people that, you've got to ask the question, if not him, then who? And
it's more like, if not him, then what?
If what? Exactly, because it could still be so much worse. How can you? Wouldn't you think it couldn't possibly get any worse? Ed Miliband,
yeah, me too.
Who I think would actually get it, because, as you say, for various reasons, Angelina, she's still got the investigation of HMRC that hasn't been concluded. And she's, she is someone who is a political fighter and a bulldog, but at a time where you might need actually someone to actually just do the job
when
well.
It's like, can you go to the G7 in Lithuania? What's that then? What's Lithuania? You don't need that.
Yes, yeah. I think I'm not sure she's got many talents, but I'm not sure.
I think she would be the least dangerous, actually.
Well,
on some level, apart from the workers' rights thing, she's pushing that through anyway, because she's sort of not really, one would assume, the most clued up on matters geopolitical and things like that on some level. I think that she could get nudged around a lot, and where, for instance, the unions themselves now saying, for crying out loud, you know, the $1 million barrel, as you just said earlier, that's too expensive for your crying out loud, man, drill.
Yes.
Get the blimmin' oil and gas out. I think Rayner would probably turn around and go, we've got to get that gas out.
Yeah.
Whereas Miliband is a zealot
Yes.
and a loon, and he loves China.
Well, and that's the point. I think you're absolutely right. That's why I think Anja has got talent. To be fair to her, I mean, there'll be people sort of, you know, reaching for the remote and sort of throwing it at me for saying that. But she has, because she is someone that, to a particular part of the electorate, will be able to say, no, I'm only interested in food bills, energy bills, people's income.
And it provided us comic relief during the slow death of the nation.
and she's a character, and Starmer's boring. So, you know, that would be a very big difference there, and something. But the headlines, I'm afraid she would not get a honeymoon period at all. She is currently, in the eyes of HMRC, the reason she lost her job. She did not pay her tax.
She would stumble into disaster within 2 seconds of being in office. But I wonder if the cartel pick might actually be Ed Miliband, because the thing is about these cartels, and I know nothing about the inner workings of the Labour Party, but like I said, all political parties have them, and the thing is they usually survive across various generations. I mean, Mandelson's definitely from the Blair cartel. There he is, popping up again, being ambassador, that Labour Together, whatever venture that was. And of course, in the intervening period, who did we have as Labour leader who dramatically beat his brother? And Ed Miliband. And so I wonder whether Miliband is a bit of a cartel pick as well. And then if he is, and they'd be like, well, he's the most sensible person. He's been the leader before. He's an old hand. He's got the experience. I think he's actually the most, in my mind, the most dangerous.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with that.
The worst.
And the reason why I think it would be Ed Miliband is because of all those reasons. He's not tainted in any particular way through institutional scandals, so he hasn't got HMRC for his head like Angela Rayner. He hasn't got the Wes Streeting that is seen far to the right of the party, who's had a friendship and with Peter Mandelson. We've seen those text exchanges, so you don't want to appoint someone that's got that proximity to the scandal in which you've just lost the last Prime Minister. And Andy Burnham isn't an MP. And then you start to look down the other line, you think, okay, John Healey, Defence Secretary, wasn't able to even send out one HMS Dragon to go and defend the people of Cyprus.
And no one really knows him. I feel like I don't mind him, but I don't know him. Yeah. Maybe I don't mind him because I've got no idea what he's all about, other than.
And it would be an odd choice. So, Miliband would be able, I think, to walk into a room, even if, I'm not a member of the Labour Party, but, if you walk into a room, you can see how he would be able to pitch himself to say, look, yes, I've done the job before at the dispatch box.
He'd probably get the backings of the unions. He had it already.
He can get the backings of the unions. He can get to the backing of the members because they are slightly to the left. I think members sort of slightly, Sir Keir Starmer was the best of a bad bunch then, but they could see that on the back of the far left of the Corbyn years, we need to get back into power. We need to have someone that's
But the thing is about Miliband, this is my problem with him. Corbyn just wears his communism on his sleeve with his allotments and his knitted jumpers and his friends of Hamas and the IRA. The rest of them are as bad. They just hide it better.
Yes.
Ed Miliband is a zealot.
Well, and that's it. And the appeal that he would have also at a time where the Labour Party is losing votes to the Greens, who is Mr. Green in the Labour Party on the Labour front benches? It's Ed Miliband.
That's
so
right.
all of these
and
people,
the young people, the young kids love a bit of Ed.
And he'll be saying, look, think of your futures. It's all about it's all about energy. We need renewable energy. He'll be saying to those young kids. And so I think he will be the only one through process of elimination that you could probably say, OK, Ed, go for it.
So
see what you can do.
Were you scouting out property in Benidorm by any chance? Have you seen anywhere for us?
Me,
you and Dean.
We'll just have to go
Refugees.
back. We'll just have to go back.
Yeah. I think we're just...
I'm up for that. What do you do? When's the next flight?
Yeah, okay. Probably no jet fuel. We'll be waiting a while, and then Ed Miliband will come in and we'll be under house arrest because we won't even be allowed to use the tube or the train because everything will have ground to a halt.
Yeah, we might get one way.
Nothing.
Yes, we might get the one-way ticket out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we need to do. We need to get on the planes now. Ed Miliband comes in, no more jet fuel, but marooned here now. Never mind.
Too bad.
Could be worse.
Could be worse. Yeah.
Starmer is a little man in stature, and therefore has a big ego, says Leslie. Well, I think that's a bit unfair. I'm little.
Yeah, I think I just think Starmer is someone who he believes in what he is doing and what he's saying, and I think he is trying to follow by his own admission. The one thing that I agree with the Prime Minister is when he says, I came to politics late, and basically he says it's code for I'm not very good at it, or I don't know all the ways.
He's not a politician. He's just a blimmin' lawyer.
And he's not a politician. Exactly. So because he's not a politician, because he doesn't know quite what he's doing, he is getting things wrong. But he believes that he's trying to. I think he believes he's trying to do it in the right way. And now he probably was furious that he said, well, why didn't I know that? Well, Prime Minister, you're not going to know that because of X, Y, Z. But the reality, that doesn't get away from the point.
I think you're cutting him a bit too much slack
maybe
here.
I am.
The man is a monster. I'm sorry. He stood there calling everyone far right after the Southport attacks and presided over people being slung into prison. Don't fall for his, I'm nice really, the man is a monster.
And I agree that was a terrible mistake, and that is just not the reality of the situation. People are more than welcome to protest. We welcome protests in this country for good reason, for free speech that shouldn't be clamped down on. I think the things that are happening in his government are not necessarily his ideas.
Well, no, they're not his ideas. He's their puppet. That's what I'm sure of.
Absolutely. And so, but then he'll have somebody in number 10 to say, Prime Minister, this is furious.
Well, I better conduct an independent investigation. That will tell me what decision I'm to make.
Exactly. But those riots, they were awful. They are far right. This is your moment, Prime Minister. This is where you can show a bit of politics.
Put them all in prison.
And say, and this is the language.
Put it on television as we throw them into a dungeon.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes and does it, thinking, yes, this will make me connect with my backbenchers, or this will make me connect with the voters that I need. And of course, it totally backfires, because that's not the common sense approach. That's not the view of the country. And he's got it wrong yet again.
I'm sorry, but a man who can preside over that happening, you're Prime Minister. It's like when he said about they're not drilling in the North Sea. Well, Miliband don't want to do it. But you are the Prime Minister. I'm sorry. He is arrogant. Some of the people I hate the most in the world are people who cannot say, I got something wrong. Who cannot, they would rather burn every bridge, trash every house, kill 1,000 people before they turn around and say, actually, the buck does stop with me. And he's an intelligent man. I'm sorry, you pick your cronies. And if someone turns around and says, let's chuck a load of people into prison and televise it for social media posts, if you're a moral person, you go, do you know what? That is terrible. And I'm sacking you.
But what he says, just very quickly, because you've made an excellent... I mean, all your points are excellent, Alex.
Of course.
They always are.
Of course.
But you can't go out there. You would have thought, as a barrister, as someone that's been trained to try and make a case. He should always be making a case for his government and what they're doing and trying to win public approval. You can't say, I'm sorry for the appointment of Peter Mandelson and I've apologised to the victims of Epstein.
Sack everyone.
And sack everyone around you, but also then try to claim, every day you wake up and you think about the victims of crime and abuse when you don't want to, when you can't put up a rape gang scandal. Exactly. An inquiry, a national inquiry should have been obvious.
That is a deliberate misdirection. Epstein's victims. China, my friend. It's deliberate deflection. Right, we've got to take another break. We're getting too much into this, aren't we? Let's do some calls.
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Okay. 03444991000 if you want to join the chorus of common sense. 87222 to send a text message, right the word talk before you text, or you can send a WhatsApp on 03444991000. And Charlie and I'll be chatting to some of you just after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, we're getting really excited here, aren't we?
We are.
We're just getting into grooming gangs and goodness, where are we going to go next? We're going to go to the phone lines is what we're going to do. Let's speak first of all to Sophia. Or is it Sophia? I never know, in Hampshire. Hello there, Sophia.
Hello, Alex and Charlie. It's Sophia.
Sophia, the standard pronunciation, but I didn't want to assume.
I know. I just want to ask a quick question. Like, does the Prime Minister go through developed vetting before becoming Prime Minister?
Yeah, so we were just discussing this, weren't we, Charlie? And I looked this up the other day. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm trying to look it up in real time. And Grok just went, connection issues. I'm like, oh, well, can't find the right thing. But I'm pretty sure they don't. And I'll tell you for why. Because in a democracy, I think you can't stand for election if you are, in prison, basically. You can't vote if you're in prison. But I don't think there's much else that precludes you from doing so, because democracy is all about picking your preferred candidate. But what I would say is I would be highly surprised if our security services didn't have files this thick on anybody who's been in cabinet or been Prime Minister. And when you think that our own Prime Minister did his gap year in a Czechoslovakian Soviet workers' camp, the other side of the Iron Curtain, but also you just have to look at the complexion of our representatives, elected representatives on the green benches. And what I would say is we spent most of the last century fighting communism, the beginning of this century fighting Islamic terrorism, and now we've got both elected 2 constituencies in the United Kingdom. So I think that's just that's your answer, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think, look, the reason, if there would have I'm sure of it too, that there will be someone somewhere, a group of people, probably the same people that did look into the SV clearance, the official SV clearance of, or DV clearance, sorry, of Peter Mandelson. But the reason why the Prime Minister wouldn't have known about the outcome of that, or shouldn't have known, it was because if there is a file on him, for example, the more people that would know, say that there was a risk between, Starmer had a particular affiliation with going to France every year, and then he was trying to do obviously he goes to France a bit more often than I think we'd like, and he doesn't get any kind of deal there. But if he had a particular association, security services would know about that, or would know that there's a link. But of course, the more people that know about something, the more that likely that is then to get into the hands of our adversaries, our rivals, the bad state actors. So that's why it's kept to a tiny number of people when they do the DV clearance.
Do you think there would ever be a situation where, I don't know, let's say, I can frame this one. Let's just go for it anyway. Let's say Zach Polanski looks like he's going to be our next Prime Minister with his host of interesting policies and his interesting deputy leader who's made some interesting comments on social media. And, people in the security services are like, OK, this is, the UK is deeply in peril because they're going to go full open borders, legalise all drugs. Oh, yeah, what are the Albanian criminals going to do? Oh, yeah, they're all going to flood in, aren't they? Legalise prostitution. Great. Traffic as many women in as possible. Yeah, the mad policies. Get rid of the Church of England. That one really grinds my gears. The security service would be like, right, if this man becomes Prime Minister, we're in trouble deep. I don't know. I just have this sort of... The only reason I can sleep at night is because I'd imagine the system would then somehow move. I don't know how, but all of a sudden it might be that certain things enter the press or certain things happen, certain things are dug up out of nowhere, which would then preclude him from being able to take high office. I just think the services would move. Don't you please?
Well, a lot of that work you'd hope would be done by the media to begin with, so journalists holding politicians to account and people that are on the ascendancy. All of those stories would come out to enable the public to make not what is the right choice, but a clear choice that if you don't want that kind of character or those kinds of policies in Parliament or becoming government policy, then, it's up to you to decide to vote elsewhere. But I think that's where, again, this is why we have these conversations all the time about, no, ministers decide and civil servants should act upon them. Yes, that's absolutely right.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
That's the way it's supposed to work. But then if you had a Zach Polanski character or someone with those views in Parliament, in government, as a government minister leading the country, that's when you kind of want the system to come and kick back and say, right, we're really going to test these views with the minister because a lot of people won't agree with that, and actually that will cause havoc if you don't put A and B together, and if you don't link that to, what that would mean for crime, what it would mean for education, what it would mean for health. And so that's why the system can strangle you and frustrate you.
Does it astonish you how much the legacy media just don't hold Polanski to account? They parade him about like it's entertaining and sweet and fun, and young people like it, and here I'm on a stage in Trafalgar Square surrounded by people who look like they've just done an all-nighter at Heaven nightclub. Here I am with all these merry Muslims who actually want to kill the people on the stage. And everyone's like, oh, it's cute, really. And I just think they're going to win. They're going to take control of councils. And my view is, ministers and MPs don't actually get to do a lot. The system's so convoluted and bureaucratic, you're kind of a bit divorced from actually wielding power in Westminster. But at council level, you have a heck of a lot of levers to pull. You can do a lot. And I don't think it's funny anymore that the Green Party are going to be winning councils, and there will be people having to live under their wacky systems. Now, they may not be able to dictate the sort of policies they want to dictate at Westminster level, but I just, it's not a joke anymore. It's time we woke up and went, the Green Party aren't cute and cuddly and rainbow lanyards and leather chaps and people in burqas. No, actually, they are a bunch of extreme communists, propped up in some part by Islamists. And these are two things that we have spent over 100 years trying to fight on the basis of national security.
Well, you're absolutely right. And that's where, the media do have a part to play, but the electorate has a part to play, but also other political parties have a role to play. So if you really are under threat by a Green vote, and you obviously don't want to see Zach Polanski anywhere in government, then as a Labour Party, as a movement, you've got to say, right, we are losing support to this individual, not because he's probably that good, but because we're doing so badly. So we have to respond to that. And as a political party, as a Labour Party, I would imagine the way to save the Labour Party, and I'm giving an open view, would be after the local elections, if they are as bad as what's been predicted for the Labour Party, they need to change leader.
Is there anyone sensible that, left-wingism is never sensible. We all know that. But, what is the best of the bunch? I don't know anymore. I don't know. I think Andy Burnham doesn't seem too bad, but people say he's really left-wing. I don't know.
Untried and untested, but would Sophia suggest anyone? Is she?
Who would you have, Sophia?
Oh, God. I just...
Yeah, God, actually, let's do that. Let's get rid of government and just go back to plain old God.
Good old God.
Yeah.
God, I think, crikey. Oh, it's just, there's no one.
No, there you go. I've got it. It's a bit like that bit after Saul where God goes in the Old Testament, that didn't work out so well. Maybe let's not have Saul about. And then he picks upon King David and everyone's like, why do you want another king? That one wasn't good. And he's like, no, this one will be all right. Anyway, Sophia, thank you ever so much. I did like that. Who would you have running the country?
God.
Oh, God.
Just God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Let's speak to Karen in Bournemouth. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Alex. Hi, Charlie. What my thinking is along the lines of that when Starmer first came into power, he knew that he would have to break the special relationship with America to force us to want to go back into the EU, to keep his friendship with China. So what he's done is he sent Mandelson, because he knew he didn't want him in the first place, and there's two things that Mandelson that would upset Trump, which is not only China, but it's also the fact that, don't forget that Trump dumped Epstein from Mar-a-Lago when he heard about it.
But also there is the element of it is all about making a US trade deal, in part, and he was a trade envoy or trade commissioner for the EU. Look, at the end of the day, Peter Mandelson knew his way around the corridors of power. He did. And if the Labour government's idea was, let's find someone who can probably speak Trump and charm him, let's find someone, maybe the idea of there being sort of like, bit of scandal hidden might have seemed an idea of mutually assured destruction or something like that. And he's going to be able to sell the Chagos project. He's going to be able to convince America that's a good idea. He's going to be able to get us a good trade deal. He's going to tell Donald Trump that actually the EU isn't that bad. I can see in some respects why they'd be like, not sure the current one's going to do our bidding. because she might not agree with it. I can totally see why they would want, for their political ambition, someone like Mandelson to do the job.
Yeah, because he wants to break the special relationship with America. He wants to make sure that it's just totally damaged, so that he can tell the people, oh well, we can't defend ourselves. We'll have to go back into the EU. We have to.
Well, there is it's a strange thing actually on that. I don't know if they necessarily want to break the special relationship. I can't really see that being beneficial to anybody, but I do think that there is that all of them look to Brussels first. There's a bit of a let's say Atlanto-scepticism that comes out of the left wing, and certainly a lot that comes out of Europe. And I think that now this sort of new narrative of, well, you know, Donald Trump sort of saying, well, what's NATO all about anyway, is kind of up their strata.
But that's a fantastic point. I mean, do you not think that the Prime Minister, if he was just open about it by saying, look, we knew that Peter Mandelson had a colourful past. I took a risk in appointing him, but what in my judgment, which is now wrong, and he apologises for that, but it's actually because he was a trade commissioner in the past, that he was able to get trade deals when we were working with, you know, a president that's also a bit fruity at times. So I thought we'd match like for like to try and get the best deal for the UK. It's completely backfired. That's on me, and I'm sorry for that. That's why he's no longer in post. But I took a political decision on that basis to get a deal by someone who knows the corridors about.
The fact that he won't answer
but he can't do that.
Yeah, the fact that he won't answer it is either a narcissist who just cannot admit responsibility or fault, possible, or a man who doesn't want to give the reason because it's, just leads you into even more trouble. OK, Dean, we're going to take a break now. Dean almost lost an arm flailing it around there. I thought it was going to, like, come out the socket and fly through the glass. Someone's had his Weetabix. Right, we are taking a short break, but don't you worry, because Charlie and I are going to be back to take some more calls, to talk about other news stories, whatever you fancy. We live in a real democracy in Talk Towers, just after this.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, right, let's talk now about Shabana Mahmood. We were just saying during the advert break, well, I was just saying, actually, she might be the least scary option. She's done something else which has made me like her a little bit more. Look, I'm not in a fan club. I haven't got a Shabana Mahmood T-shirt I sleep in at night. But out of the cabinet, she could probably be my favourite, I think. She was doing a Matt Ford political party performance at the Duchess Theatre in London's West End. He's a political stand-up comic. And inside, I think she was told by a heckler to F right off after he accused her of copying Nigel Farage's Reform Party with her immigration policies. He said, I personally thank you for out-reforming reform. And it was during this live podcast recording. And so, she told the heckler, rather, to F right off. And I'm like, oh, good. And then she described them as white liberals, which I'm like, yes, true. And she said that they appeared to believe that as a brown woman, she should not be allowed to hold particular views. I kind of am with her on this. You know, all these ethnats who are like, we got to deport millions. I'm like, have you noticed that a lot of the most weird left-wing people are actually from the white middle classes? You know? Let's be real. But, you know, fine. I agree with her. She is, out of everybody, I don't know, the one who seems to be exhibiting the most signs of sanity.
Yeah, and I think, look, she is, she's a very intelligent woman, and she, you know, gets it. I think where Starmer is lacking, she actually gets the politics of it, I think. So she's obviously trying to, in a very colourful way, tell this individual to get lost, who suggested that her immigration reforms were tough or on a par with the Reform Party, and she took issue with that. But if you look at what's happened in the Home Office since, you know, this government have come in, you had Yvette Cooper at the helm, who had been the former chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee. She's the one. She had been the shadow Home Secretary for years in the run-up in opposition before the general election 2024, before coming into government. So if there was any woman that should have had a hand on the tiller when it came to immigration and reforms and getting it right, it should have been Yvette Cooper. She was moved on. She was moved to the Foreign Office, and Siobhan Mahmood came in and understood that actually, no, we need to go further, we need to go faster, we need to go tougher.
She also says here something which I equally agree with, where I just read it somewhere and I was like, that's a really good point. Now I can't find it. She basically says, here we go. I've actually put a circle around it. I don't know, I couldn't find it when I've gone like this with my biro. She said it was a way of delegitimising perfectly valid, legitimate views of millions of people in this country, including ethnic minorities in this country. That is exactly the point. And it turns out that they were two posh yobs. This is exactly what I'm saying. You cannot... A lot of people who are anti the huge levels of immigration we've got right now have come from immigrant families themselves, who integrated, who came to Britain with a dream of being part of Britain. Now, we know there's plenty of people who clearly don't hold those sensibilities, who are opportunists, who are coming en masse into this country. But that's the point she's making is, you know, being hardline about immigration or loose on immigration is not dictated by your ethnicity or background. And yes, the people who heckled her, basically accusing her of being a right-wing fascist, are two posh white people.
Absolutely, and she's got it right, because she is doing her best. It's not enough, as a lot of people were saying, but we've got to see how those reforms progress in the next year or so, if she's still the Home Secretary.
Well,
you know?
Lord knows, she's our Prime Minister.
She could be the Prime Minister.
Who knows? Well, listen, we've still got so much to talk about, and I've managed to Chinese burn, metaphorically speaking, Charlie's wrists to stay on another 15 minutes, so join us just after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you go, in Benidorm already, baby. Woo! Where's our pina coladas?
Yeah.
Where's our sunbeds?
Oh, yes. And it was lovely weather where I've just come from.
Right now, I bet it was. Did you get up into any mischief?
No real mischief.
Really?
A few couple of late nights, but all worth it. It was my birthday. That's why I was out there.
Oh, was it? Did you hire yourself a mobility scooter? Just making life that bit easier.
There were none available.
Oh, they'd all been
all
taken already. I said there was when I spent the sort of winter of COVID in Lanzarote, got marooned. There was a particular bar in the sort of big main beach there, which was always sort of go past this bar packed. Looks very humble, but packed every day, absolutely heaving. The most humble place you can imagine. But it was always surrounded by like a sort of a moat of shop mobilities, mobility scooters. Yeah, it's like the Easy Riders.
Yes.
Easy Riders bar.
And they're not always used in the way which I think they were sort of built for, which is probably the more elderly and immobile population. I think in Benidorm,
it's a sort of luxury option now.
I saw young couples riding. It was their it was their way to get around.
Yeah. Who needs legs? You're on holiday. That's why you go get legless.
Get legless. Yeah.
Right. So. If you think about it, we didn't even need Mandelson ruining our special relationship stateside, with Starmer doing a sterling job of that himself. The interesting thing, if it hadn't been smoked out, the Mandelson thing, he probably would have done. Donald Trump would probably still like him, because he is a sort of...
Yes, yeah. You can see that there's... look, he's got a colourful history as well, Donald Trump, so I think he likes characters, so... but, there you go.
Alex, stop scaring us with Ed Miliband potentially becoming PM. We don't want nightmares. It's bad enough. He looks like Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. Well, sort of. He does look like a Nick Park plasticine model, for sure.
And one nasal sort of sounding Prime Minister to another.
Oh, that's the whole of the Labour Party. I think to qualify to get into cabinet, you need to have your sinuses inflamed. But I'm not trying to scare you. It is actually, if I were a bookmaker, I think the odds would be stacked very much in his favour. Yeah,
and I think he wants it as well. I don't think he's not someone that's just going to sit back and say, well, to coin Boris Johnson's phrase, if the ball came loose from the back of the scramble, people suddenly turned into me and they asked me to do it, so I've reluctantly stood up. I think behind the scenes, he is having conversations with, people and probably saying, look, let's just see how this goes. But, and making the case. But he's making a case, I think, to his backbench colleagues and others on a policy-based issue. So when all the world is obviously a bit of a nightmare, it seems to me at the minute, when there's so much depression in the country because of... He's able to, even if it's not something that they would get behind or should get behind, by him saying, look, I've actually got a positive message to tell, because by a certain year we're actually going to have carbon-free emissions. Our young kids are not going to have the sort of polluted lungs that we don't have now. But he will be making the case to say, I'm trying to do something in government.
Was he supposed to be doing a big speech today or something? I certainly got like bits and bobs from pre-briefings, but I didn't actually...
You're absolutely right, he did. And I think the top line from that was that he said he's not going to back down, he's going to double down.
I know.
On drilling, on not importing any more.
Because I was sitting there thinking, because I've got gas heating, as most people do, and I'm like, oh, blimey, if we're doubling down, and
Yeah, no,
good for me.
He would legislate again, I think, for net zero by 2030, to probably bring it even.
Net zero by tomorrow.
Yeah,
he loves it.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a scary man. Now, talking about policies on the surface of it look all nice and ethical. Like, let's decouple electricity from gas and, go for net zero. This is another one, which is children aged 17 or under will face a lifelong ban on buying cigarettes. So this was actually first mooted, was it Rishi Sunak who first pushed this idea forward? That it's basically banning smoking, but you can't do it to people who are already smoking, is essentially what they're doing. So if you are not already a smoker and you're under 18, you will never be a smoker. And part of me has a sympathy with the idea that smoking rots your lungs and all the rest of it. But the other, I like agency and free choice. But also, it will push a lot of stuff into a black market. Because if people are still allowed to buy tobacco products who are of a certain age, then, you know what, you're going to have people having to go, what is your year of birth, do the calculation. You'll be sending in other people, buying it from a street corner. I don't know. What do you make of this?
It's ridiculous, and I'm someone who usually want to see us have happier, healthier lives, and smoking is an erosion on that. We know all the health problems that come with smoking, so it's right to try and do something about it. But you have to do it in a way in which impacts on everybody, and that is like saying, okay, if you want to smoke, still can, but we'll have a smoking ban inside buildings, something that already exists, or we'll encourage you to move on to vapes, for example, or phase things in a way.
I think the big mistake
for
here was
everybody.
Basically saying about vapes like they're the same as cigarettes. That to me was crazy.
Yeah,
when you searched it, all of a sudden 1 minute, you had to smoke outside, but people could suck a vape inside, and I just don't see any harm in that, really. I don't know.
Yeah, but the inequality of it all is that you're going to get people after that particular, obviously the date, 2008, you'll have someone at some stage that's 35, someone's that's 34, the guy that's 35 can buy cigarettes, the girl that's 34...
Yeah, one day's difference.
Won't be able to buy it. But then the onus is what? On the shopkeeper to challenge that person when you're
checking
born.
IDs. How do you know?
And you're working out exactly, and you're asking people in their 30s for. I mean, I wasn't asked for ID in Benidorm when I'm in my 30s for anything. But is that then the because it's a law?
Right,
the onus is on the shopkeeper.
It's not
now.
Actually if you appear above the age of 16, because this moves with them throughout their whole lives. It's everybody forever now of around a certain age is going to be asked to prove that. So it's just. Yeah.
And that is a law on the statute, but the police will have to enforce if it comes to that, which we don't want our police wasting time on trying to work out whether someone is 20 or 30 because one was born after, or 29, 30 because someone was born in 2008 and someone was born in 2009.
How about they do a little bit more about the 2 children being stabbed every single day with the average age of 14? That is a problem.
Yep.
This...
Yeah.
I don't see many people smoking cigarettes anymore. Not like when I was growing up. Everyone smoked cigarettes. When I was at university, I used to work in a nightclub, and people on the dance floor dancing around their handbags over a cigarette. That's what they did. Yeah. And it's while I was at journalism school afterwards that the smoking ban came in, and it was such a weird thing. All of a sudden, smoke-free pubs. And in many respects, I think that was a good thing to do. In many respects, not all respects. I think there should be a little bit more liberty. But I'm really not against... The point is this. We're given agency to make decisions. And if we want to do something which directly risks our lives or our health, then we're given all the public information, all the warnings. If you still proceed, well, that's your choice. And I hate this idea that it's about saving the NHS money. I don't think the NHS is spending that much money on treating... I don't know, but obesity, there's all sorts of health conditions. I don't like it when it suddenly gets into being puritanical about people's existences to save someone else money.
Yeah, and you can always... there are other things that can be done before bringing in, say, a piece of legislation like this, which I think is just going to become very complicated. You can encourage people to just have more healthier lives. You can have then things like vaping to say, look, that will get you off the smoking, but it's still the habit. If it's after the habit that you want, or you can't shake off lighting up, every 5 minutes, well, turn to vaping, because we don't know the health benefits of vaping, I don't think, totally, but it's better, clearly, in a health sense, than it is smoking. So that's a direction of travel. That's a policy sort of, investigate that you can look into. You can investigate, I should say. But the idea of just this cut-off age, it just doesn't sit well with me.
Weird.
Because, again, you're right. I'm entitled, as you are, as most people here in this very room are. If we want to go and have a smoke outside, we can have a smoke outside. If we want to go and have a few drinks after work, we can go and do that if we want. But if we choose not to, it's our choice. Because we're grown adults in a free world. And whereas, again, I hate to keep banging on about my holiday, but this is a UK law. There will be plenty of kids in their 60s, 17, 18s, 19s. It doesn't really matter, because after 2008, whatever that age cutoff is, that could go to Benidorm, that could go to Spain, could go to France, and just buy cigarettes no end and light up if they wanted to.
Well,
So, you can tell I'm
Are you missing them?
I'm a frequent.
Are you missing sitting on the...
Yes, exactly.
The Ramblas. You're like Benson Hedges. I can see you just like you're there. You're back. And you sort of got lost in a moment then. I saw your eyes glaze over.
Back in holiday mode. But that's people's choice. But you can do it internationally. So it's now, and I'm not saying that because something is international, therefore everything has to be international. Because I wouldn't legislate cannabis, which you can get obviously in Amsterdam. But that is a one-off case, or there'll be countries that are one or two-off cases. The majority of countries don't offer that. I think us as an outlier to all of a sudden say you can't buy cigarettes after a particular year in which you're born when you can everywhere else, I just think it doesn't work.
I just also think there are so many more pressing concerns. I
Absolutely.
don't think that many young people are smoking.
No, well, they're not drinking, they're not going out anymore, they're not having, they're
just sad.
They're not having children or
doing anything.
Or doing anything.
Just swiping and
yeah.
getting sad on social media.
Yeah.
Poor little things. I do worry for them. Pete in Southend-on-Sea, my son, a non-smoker, noticed that after the indoor ban, pubs smell sweaty. They also smell of fart. Once upon a time, as someone who did work in pubs and nightclubs, when men have a certain amount of beer, and it is men, you don't get many women tanking down the pints, and it's beer directly connected to nightclub flatulence, and it ain't nice.
Well,
I miss that. I miss coming home stinking of cigarettes. Smoking ban in pubs has been a total disaster for the industry. The sensible thing to do would have been to bring back smoking and tap rooms. Now, that's kind of my position here, because people who are hardline smokers will actually be like, oh, if I go to the pub, it's really cold, it's pouring down with rain, every time I want a cigarette, I'm going to have to go stand outside, I'll just get some tinnies and stay at home. Yeah, mitigating choice is miserable.
Yeah, and look, if you want to go even further and say, actually, pubs should be able to decide whether they want smoking or not in their pubs. But that's a choice of the pub, the publican, the landlord, and that's a choice for the consumer. And so if you're a landlord that all of a sudden, realises that you've only got actually 3 of the same blokes that smoke inside, drink too much, flatulence no end, then you might think, actually, right, I'm going to say next week, no, when we'll ban smoking, and you might find there's a few more people there. Then it's a business choice, and because it's a business after all.
Yeah.
But but pubs are special because they're more than a business. I know people will be saying that because they're community hubs. They should be for people to go out and not sit at home drinking tinnies.
It's
no end.
a public house.
Public house, exactly.
It's very different from a perpendicular bar, like you have in other parts of the world. You sit down, you have a pint, you're in your neighbourhood, it's the heart of your community. It's basically like a house party.
Yeah.
And I don't like all these strictures being put on things. I lived in Benidorm, says someone, not me.
Oh, yeah.
Says, hi, Alexa, I'm not there to shut your curtains or turn on your lights or to recommend tracks or answer your questions about, I don't know, World War II medals. I'm not Alexa, it's just Alex. Thank you. I hate Alexas as a result. Honestly, it's grinding.
And I bet you've set off quite a few of the Alexas listening in the rooms of people listening to this show.
Creepy. Let's just stick on the Alexa. I've got to get this off my chest. Do you know what I hate most about Alexas? Most people who have Alexas end up shouting at Alexa like it's a naughty toddler. Alexa, play Fleetwood Mac. I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Did you say Paul McCartney? No. Alexa, play Fleetwood Mac. I'm sorry. Alexa, play Fleetwood Mac. Currently playing Mac the Knife, and I'm like, dude, if you just picked up and pressed it with your finger on the phone, the track would be playing right now. I hate them.
They are. I'm not a techno person really, or tech person, or techno. But
it's so lazy.
I'm not. But I know they can do lots of other things. They can sort of turn on lights, as you say, and change temperature in the room and all sorts of things. But I'm I can. Manual for me is best.
Oh, I would go back to stone tablets and troglodytism if I had my way, and I'm not even joking. That is the dream. Anyway, so I lived in Benidorm and the surrounding areas. And they have many churches there that are so beautiful to look at. And they also have in March Las Fallas, which is a celebration. But in Valencia, they build a 5-metre image of the Virgin Mary out of flowers. Nice to know.
Well,
Next time you go, you better, go for the fellas, not the fellas.
Keep going.
Right. Okay, thank you ever so much. Thank you ever so much for your wonderful company, as always, Charlie Rowley. And, right, we're going to let Charlie go and smoke a packet of Benson Hedges and relive his pina colada moments. And then we're going to be talking about the crime that is engulfing the United Kingdom, and especially, actually, multiple arrests around the country, which appear to be connected to terrorist bomb plots. And then a terrorist who was jailed for planning to bomb the London Stock Exchange. But he's been allowed to stay on human rights grounds. Of course he has. We're going to be digging into all of that just after this.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I mean, have you just got to the point now where... Oh, do you know what? Before we get onto crime, should we do a call? Hi, my lovely... assistant producer, Matt, is staring at me through the glass. I almost said your nickname on air there, Matt. And did you say... I didn't do it, I know. No, I didn't do it. Lovely Matt is giving me the evil eye through the glass because Alan from Merseyside is waiting on the phone. Hi, Alan.
Hello. We're having it's actually really funny, this, but will you stop saying, Alexa, will you play this? Alexa, will you do that? Every time you do it, my Alexa's playing Fleetwood Mac or whatever now.
Oh, this is my point. This is why I hate it. Should we do a live radio test? Have you got your Alexa near you?
Well, yeah, I have.
Okay,
yeah.
I want to do this.
I'm going to still play music. Alexa, be quiet. Okay.
Right, now I want to see if I can set it off. So I'm going to pick something mildly complicated to pronounce. Let's see, what can I go for? I know. Alexa, play Je ne regrette rien.
Non, je ne regrette rien, and similar songs on Amazon Music.
I think Alexa might have semi-got it then, to be honest. I don't know, her pronunciation ain't the best, but I actually think she indirectly answered my command for once, the defiant little so-and-so. Well, wasn't defiant at that point. But I just, I'm just going to troll people with Alexas.
For you, Alex.
Yeah.
Say to it, before you go to bed, Alexa, do you love me? Well, I like you, but I don't love you, she says.
What? But I'm trying to chat up your Alexa now.
Well, you know what I mean. So I've got to chat to someone, haven't I?
I suppose. I mean, we're having a very odd conversation right now for sort of live radio, me talking to your Alexa while you're here, and Lord knows how many people listening thinking, what is this I've tuned into? But anyway, if you've got an Alexa at home, you might want to turn it off, because I'm going to say, what's a really irritating song? What's it?
Mildly complicated to pronounce. Let's see, what can I go for?
But that's me! I've got a mitt, Alex, now. OK, do you know, this call's got to end, because I don't know what's going on anymore. Alan, thank you ever so much. Alan in Merseyside there, confusing me when Alexa... I don't know. This is why tech is bad. Tech is bad. So is terrorism, and so is shoplifting, which is how we're going to segue into the next topic. And welcome aboard retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector Mr. Mike Neville. Another supermarket, another person sacked because they tackled a shoplifter. This time it was a Morrison's store manager, Sean Egan, said he interviewed when a shoplifter became abusive and aggressive while being escorted from the Morrison's store in Aldridge, near Walsall in the West Midlands. And this is a prolific shoplifter, apparently. 46-year-old Mr. Egan, who's worked in the store for 29 years, said he had been told he would be dismissed on the grounds of not following the company's deter, not detain policy. As part of the policy, he was supposed to escort the man off the premises. Yet as I was doing so, he was very aggressive and spitting at me. I stepped forward, flung my arm back. That was an instant reaction. I grabbed his arm to stop him from entering his bag to grab something. Then the altercation happened. I mean, look, Mike, surely the store manager was doing what the store manager should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. I mean, what do the Morrisons want? I mean, this is another PR disaster like the Waitrose one. You think they would learn by now about these things? Because firstly, the public are just appalled because they think this guy's worked hard all his life. 29 years service and that's for that shop. Like the other guy, 17 years working for Waitrose and then dismissed for trying to stop people stealing their goods. But it's the message that it sends out to the thieves, isn't it? That you offer any sort of violence or just the threat of violence and you can do what you want. That's what it basically says. So you can go in there, you can help yourself to several steaks, several bottles of whiskey and anything else that's quite valuable. And then you just say, keep off me, I'll be violent. And you're just allowed to walk out of the shop. And I've said it before, but it's like a tipping point, isn't it? Where society, where you look around and you think, why am I being a mug and paying for my stuff when everybody else is just walking out with it? It's just the wrong message that this sends.
It really does. And I feel desperately sorry for people now who work in retail who, no doubt, if that store recorded a loss of profits or, year upon year results were down because so much produce was going missing, who's going to get it in the neck? The store manager.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thieves as well know there's no consequence. This is a guy who's worked hard all his life, now finds himself unemployed. He probably doesn't get much money, unlike the scoundrel who was shoplifting, who probably gets loads of benefits and the like. And these thieves, they know that there's no real consequences. The Labour Party have done away with 12-month sentences. So not many shoplifters get anything more than that. So the thief knows that there's nothing going to happen to him. I've dealt with criminals. I've spoke to criminals. They used to give me information. And one of the things I've picked up from them is that they have no fear whatsoever of all these community sentences, all this rubbish. What they fear is being locked up and being put in prison. And that's what we need to start doing because we've come to that point in society where obeying the rules is the mug's game.
Yeah. No, well, exactly. And this is where we are. And we all have to, as the law-abiding people, essentially subsidise their criminality because prices go up, the need to have security guards, all of it. Yeah. Now let's talk about this story, which is today. It hasn't really rattled the headlines. I think on a different news day, which wasn't all about blimmin' Mandelson, we might have heard a bit more about it, which is 7 people have now been arrested over an alleged plan to commit an arson attack targeting the Jewish community. But this is basically men dotted around the UK, Harpenden in Hertfordshire, someone in Stevenage, someone else in Birmingham, and someone else in Ealing. What we are beginning to see looks as though Iran's threats for terrorists to rise up around the world, well, could be having an effect. We don't know yet what might be going on here, but certainly there have been various neo-terrorist organisations pledging allegiances to Iran, which have made claim for some of these attacks on synagogues and Jewish properties.
It's quite incredible, isn't it? We've imported into this country this anti-Semitic beliefs, wickedness. It's just quite incredible. It's, you know, this had died a death in this country. I can't think of anybody who didn't like Jewish people. You know, when I was a child, this was never an issue, and we'd sort of know we've come to the point. We're back to the sort of Nazi Germany, really. We know where this is coming from. And of course, Iran can just whip this up and they'll pay people good money to do it. And I just feel it's absolute tragedy for the Jewish community. I remember once being asked to give a talk about forensic science in a synagogue. And this was about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. Well, what struck me is that there was a security guard as I went in the synagogue. And I thought, for God's sake, you know, how is it that a church or a place of worship, a synagogue, has to have a security staff on duty here? And this is where we've got to. Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the Jewish community, and it's just simply unacceptable. But this is the repercussion of, one, international events with the war against Iran, but also allowing into this country people who are anti-Semitic.
And what I really worry about now is the fact that, a bit like when you hear that a kid's got stabbed in wherever, now anywhere, a 14-year-old stabbed by another kid, it's just like, oh, that again. Whereas about 10 years ago, if a kid had been stabbed by another kid, it'd be headline news for weeks and weeks and weeks. Yeah. And I sort of feel like, I remember back when we lived under the, you know, terror traffic light system, the alert system, where we, you know, what's the high level, you know, of terrorism today after 9/11, after 7/7, and again during the war against ISIS. But now it seems to me that we're like, oh yeah, Iran-related terrorists dotted all around the country, arrests because there they go, trying to burn down synagogues. And it's a bit like shrug of the shoulders, well, we've come to expect that now. That's normal. No, it's not. It's terrifying.
It is terrifying. I mean, the one good thing I say, Alex, you know, the police often fail. You know, we see the shoplifting, we see burglaries on the increased, rapes and robberies. But one area that the police are good at, the one that are very professional, one of the particular areas is anti-terrorism, and there's so many crimes that could be committed, so many wicked offences, that bomb plots and the like that could go off but don't, because the highly professional officers arrest these criminals before they commit the acts, and so we can be grateful. We've got good security services and counter-terrorism officers.
But the thing is, they have to be successful every single time. A terrorist only has to get it right once.
Exactly, as the IRA said in the 80s, that's exactly what they said. But we can be very grateful that we've got these officers who are targeting these individuals and stopping 9 out of 10 attacks. We'll never stop all of them, but they are doing the best. But my heart, as I say, goes out to the Jewish community. No community should live in fear like they live in fear.
No, it's deplorable. And it's not helped by this next story, which is that a terrorist who was jailed for planning to bomb the London Stock Exchange, one Shah Rahman, who was one of 4 Al-Qaeda-inspired extremists locked up in 2012 over a sick plot to bomb the capital. Well, guess what? He's applied for asylum. The same year he was first released on licence. What's he only does 5 years in prison? Just because the bombs didn't go off and he wasn't successful, I'm sorry, 5 years doesn't seem like a lot for someone trying to blow people up in London. But then he's released on licence, then he applies for asylum, and he's been judged that it can't be removed to Bangladesh because it would breach his rights under Article 3, which is an absolute right of protection from torture or degrading treatment. I'm sorry, there are plenty of people right now who go back to visit family in Bangladesh. It might be a bit of a messed up country politically, but it's not, you know, going around committing any sort of a genocide. Why on earth is this person 5 years in prison for being part of trying to blow up the capital? Is that it? Is that all you get? And then you're out on licence. It's like, well, I ever go back to Bangladesh, considering I'm a big, nasty terrorist and all, might end up in trouble. I don't care. You wanted to slaughter, in the most vile atrocity ever, Multitudes.
They need to. This man should be in prison for 50 years, really. But what you have is a left-wing establishment who've taken over the judiciary, who will feel sorry for him and whatever else. You've got the bizarre situation. His wife is actually banned from the country as well. She was had all sorts of Al Qaeda photographs on her phone. Yep. But what strikes me, though, Alex, is that in the papers, and I've checked all the papers, no one names the judge or the person making this decision. Right. So my view is the person who's made this decision, they should be named. It's like everything else. This individual living probably in Leafy, Hampshire or something in a little village, and they have no contact. So they're happy that this character will be binned off onto some council estate somewhere in London, who will then cause misery for all the neighbours and whatever else with what he does, and claim a load of benefits that we are paying for. And they have no consequence. These judges have no consequences. And when you look into these immigration tribunals, the judge is often some barrister whose previous experience is defending asylum seekers. So you've almost got a loaded dice before you start. You go in there. I personally feel like the way solution to this is these immigration tribunals should have a jury where people like me and you are picked and we decide, because I don't think we can trust. I'm sorry.
I think we don't even. I think it should just be a cut and dry. Off you go, sunshine. You've been in prison. Bye. Because this is what's scary. His wife, like you said, was found to have a load of ISIS and jihadist propaganda on her phone. She was arrested. Despite the discovery, she was actually allowed to enter the UK and lived with him for at least a year. And then it appeared that she was then told she had to go again. And then he's been recalled to prison and convicted for failing to notify probation of a mobile phone, email address and a bank account. So he had a secret bank account, secret mobile phone and secret email address. Oh, that's great. We're really monitoring him, Mr. Bomber, would-be bomber. Yeah, eyes on that. Because he was using these illicit accounts to contact his jihadist-loving wife. Now, what are the chances, then, that Mr. Rahman, Bangladeshi, whatever his name is, still is a big fan of Islamism? I would assume, given his wife loves a bit of terrorism and he's having, private conversations with her because she's banned from the country for having extreme material on her phone, and he set up secret accounts to stay in touch, I don't think he's out of the woods yet. I think that man looks like he could be a problem.
It is a problem, but the trouble is there's tens of thousands of people who have this problem, who are Islamists in this nation, and there's simply not enough security services or counter-terrorism officers to monitor them all. Yeah, you have the prevent program, which only 10% of the referrals are like Islamist terrorists, whereas Islamist terrorism is 95% of the terrorism. Yeah. You have these ridiculous situations where the establishment doesn't want to accept that Islamic terrorism is a problem. You always come at those, oh no, but the far right, who are these far right terrorists? I don't see them. Who are they killing? What's going on?
Exactly. There might be some people with unsavoury views and racist and nasty opinions, but they're not,
that's it.
plotting bomb attacks.
Sending daft faxes to people and sending out Facebook posts. These are not a threat to our lives. But the establishment can't cope with it. I've said it many times, there is a new religion in this country, is wokeism. It consists of things like climate change, multiculturalism, and they're absolutely obsessed with these things. And no matter how wrong it goes, it is a religion, so they've got to carry on. So there's no way that the establishment will deal with it. That's why I'm saying, Alex, that, for example, when the decision around people staying in this country cannot be left in the hands of judges. They've been infiltrated. We need to have ordinary people making those decisions. Like, this is why they want rid of juries, because juries make, in their eyes, the wrong decisions.
Oh, we're sleepwalking. We're not even sleepwalking. Eyes wide open, running at a great speed towards a terrible, terrible thing. Mike, it's always great to catch up with you, my darling. Let's do it again soon. Now, before I go to advert break, by the way, on the other side of advert break, we're going to be talking about the fact that it's the Queen's 100th birthday anniversary today. Loved her so much. Not sure I like that statue they're putting up as much so. But anyway, before we go to advert break, because a lot of people are sort of flustered and have been messaging me about me shouting a certain name. Alexa, play Snooker Loopy by Chaz and Dave. See you in a bit.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Sorry, I was just shouting at Dean saying, can you not hear me? He's just totally ignoring me. Shocking. Did you enjoy that, by the way, all of you Alexa owners? I thought I'd give you a little treat, a little blast from the past. I know, being mischievous. Now, let us talk about our incredible late Queen. This would have been her 100th birthday today, and King Charles has put out a very special message talking about the late Queen's legacy of hope. A video address filmed at Balmoral this month. He added his mother, who died, of course, in 2022, aged 96, always had a marvellous twinkle of the eye. Let's speak now to our brilliant royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. Rupert, what can I say? I miss her. To this day, I miss her. It felt, and it has been, a total changing of an era, I feel. You know, when we look back at past history, we kind of look at things in periods, the Georgians, the Victorians, the Edwardians, and I kind of feel like she was defining of an entire era.
Well, the Elizabethan era was defined, the longevity ensured that she left her mark on this country like no other monarch. And sort of when you think when she ascended to the throne in the early 50s, just a few years after the end of the Second World War, the way everything has changed in that period, it's been a seismic change in society on all levels. Yet for all of us, she was the constant thread as everything sort of, or maybe people think unraveled, the change in society, the swinging 60s, you then had every era was defined coming into a new millennium. There she was, that little figure, sort of doing her stuff with a gentle hand on the tiller. And so when she died, having lived a full life at age 96, obviously for all of us, you know, how many people in this country actually remembered her not being on the throne? And that's when you have to put into context, it was a tiny percentage of the population, because there she was, you know, if you think 1952, anyone built, you know, would have been now in their 70s. So you put it into context that what she oversaw, and that's why, you know, it's so hard for the king. Meanwhile, the king is having to deal with so much going on a geopolitical level, a family level, that it all feels a bit confusing. And that's why I think he made that statement alluding to his dear mama and the way she was a sort of would be confused by what is going on right now. Let's be honest, as many of us are.
Right, she represented some sort of glue, that she was that amazing common denominator between all of us in this country. There's very few people who had anything bad to say about the Queen. And not just in our country, but countries around the world. I thought that some of the testimonies from world leaders at the time of her death were so incredibly moving. My two favourites, actually, came from world leaders that I can't say I'm the biggest fans of. One was from Justin Trudeau, who simply said, I loved her so. And the other was Emmanuel Macron, who said to you, she was your queen, but to us, she was the Queen. And that is something so incredible. Was it just the longevity that gave her such a sacred place in world history? Or was it more? Was it there was something that we can't explain it, but there was something about her. There was an essence of her, which is difficult to put into words, which was a beautiful combination of a sort of warmth, a strength, a stoicism, and a mischief.
Mischief, definitely, and you know, I know for a fact that she loved to joke, but more importantly, I think all the foreign leaders, just because she'd seen and been on the throne since Churchill through to Liz Truss, you put it into context that she'd seen absolutely everything. JFK, you know, every president that she would have met over the years from the United States, every world leader from so many different countries that she would have met. And so what she was able to do was to bring a gentle, wise counsel. Remember, the Prime Minister has a weekly meeting with the monarch, and yet she was able to quietly sort of offer gentle advice, because obviously, it was the Prime Minister is, she does the Prime Minister's bidding. But the point of those meetings was for her in many ways to just say, would you think of going a slightly different direction, or just a gentle word in some Prime Minister's ear? What she would have made of what's going on right now with everything, there may be some eye rolling. And for the King, when you think now he's got to go to America next week for a state visit, which is under the auspices of celebrating from an American perspective 250 years of independence, but most of the time the President of America is making pops at the Prime Minister of this land. So it's going to be a very interesting one. And so the fact is, the Queen, if she'd gone there, I wonder how she would be approaching it. And bearing in mind, the current King is still recovering from cancer, so it's not going to be an easy...
I would imagine that the one person that Donald Trump would sort of start squirming in front of would be if the Queen sort of gave him a sort of gentle dressing down. I think he would pivot completely.
Well, he did have the... I know when he came for various state visits, it all looked a bit surreal, but the Queen had this ability to sort of read the room and understand, who she was dealing with.
Yeah.
Look, she even had a state visit from President Ceausescu, and that didn't end well for the president of Romania. Politically, the King or Queen has to do the bidding of the government of the time. So it's extremely, you have to have an ability to navigate through very choppy waters. And as we know, we are going through gale force winds at the moment out in the seas. So it's going to be an interesting week next week.
It really is. Let's talk, before I let you go, about some of the things being done to commemorate the Queen. There's a lovely project with the Sun's royal photographer Arthur Edwards, who wants to launch a digital tribute, which is asking anyone who's ever met the Queen and might have personal photographs to submit them into an archive. And then we've also got a statue, which is being unveiled. I must admit, I really want a statue of our Queen. Just not sure it's that one, if I'm honest with you.
No. And here's the thing. They did the Queen Mother Gates when she died. And I remember at the time, there were people moaning about those. So it's always one of those things. It's a personal choice. It's a subject. Someone's been approved a sculpture. Now, what you've got to make sure that it does at least look like the Queen. Right?
Yeah.
And that's your starting point. And yes, I think a statue's... Art is one man's meat is another man's poison, right? So it's the same principle with that. I think what they're trying to do, creating a space in St James's Palace, is very worthy. But remember, and hopefully there are things the length and breadth of the country. There was a very nice sort of party today with people who were born 100 years ago and other sort of from people that the Queen was well associated with. And I have to say, I was with my brother the other day, and there's pictures of Royal Ascot going on. Well, my brother, so there was a picture in a paper the other day of her wearing a big yellow dress. And Michael, my brother, turned around to me and he said, I'm a bit cross. They cut me out because it's me standing next to her watching one of my horses that ran for her at Royal Ascot. And I said, well, Michael, I'm sorry, it wasn't about you. But it's a lovely photograph, and she loved her horses, as we know. And so just adding a sort of family memory about the Queen in that context.
But it's beautiful. I really wish they had made use of that fourth plinth outside, in Trafalgar Square, outside the National Gallery, which we constantly have some sort of jokey, ridiculous, woke piece of nonsense stuck up there, which is frankly embarrassing. That, to me, would have been a plinth ready and waiting for probably one of the greatest monarchs this country will ever have. And if I could pick how she would be presented, do you know, I've got a photo at home, Rupert, and people always say to me when they come to my house, where did you get that? Where'd you get that? Here's a trick. Found it on the internet and asked to have it properly printed and framed. But it's the photo of her as a young mechanic in the Second World War, bent over, I think it's a Land Rover, bonnet up, spanners in hand, and I'm just like, that was my girl. That was my Queen. That is one of my favourite, most enduring images of her. The roll up and get on with it.
Well, and she did, and that was the whole point of the royal family in the Second World War. It was, you had to get out. Lots of women were doing exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
I used to talk to my aunt, and she told me a story of how she drove 4-tonners from Scotland to South, when she was young, from the north of the country to the south. So there were so the Queen was actually just doing what so many other women, and being seen to do it, and to be doing it, not just in a sort of photo op kind of way. The Queen would have insisted of getting her hands grubby, and doing it like everybody else. And that was the key element of what George VI and the Queen Mother said. They could have bolted from London,
but they didn't. They
made a point of saying, London's being bombed. Yes, of course we could go, but we are from London and we should be going through the same experience.
The thing. The Queen, to me, really sort of represented the end of our being blessed with the greatest generation. Rupert, gonna have to say goodbye. We've run out of time, my darling. But thank you ever so much for joining us on a very special day, the 100th anniversary of the late Queen's birth today. Wasn't she wonderful? Right, from a wonderful former Queen to a very wonderful present political theorist, because after the break we're joined by an all-time talk favourite, Professor Ralph Schulhammer. That's after this.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Now, you know when you sit in your country and you go, this is pretty rubbish. We've got really bad Prime Minister, God, mad socialist running Britain. Sometimes, at least, you can look at somewhere else and go, well, at least we're not Spain. I know, Spain has got a lot going for it. I'm a big fan. Spanish food, Spanish wine, the Canary Islands, everyone knows I love them. What I'm not a fan of is this mad policy by Pedro Sanchez, the annoyingly handsome socialist Prime Minister of Spain, for basically saying to 500,000 migrants, right, you can stay. You can stay whoever you are. We don't know. Doesn't matter. Apparently the Bangladeshis have been having parties in the streets where there are queues everywhere outside registry offices and makeshift regularisation centres in Catalonia, Andalusia. I mean, what on earth is going to transpire? This is more mad, frankly, than when Angela Merkel went, refugees welcome, and a whole load of them traipsed across Europe, because this is basically giving carte blanche to just live in Europe. Let's speak to Ralph Schallhammer, my favourite political theorist of them all. Ralph, has he lost his marbles?
Well, I mean, apparently he's annoyingly handsome. I think that's not a description that he gets very often. So if the undertaker of your country is at least good looking, that must be something, right?
Well, you know, he does have a look of a watch model.
Yeah, and you know what? We would be. I mean, I think he looks like the guy, you know, who is on the picture that comes with the frame if you buy it at IKEA. But you know, I'll give it to you. He looks good, and maybe this helps to conceal what he's doing. I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, you had on the one hand what happened in Central and Eastern Europe, in Hungary, right, where Viktor Orban did the exact opposite. He was a threat to democracy, the enfant terrible of the European Union. And then you have this other guy in Spain who is really quite literally now throwing open the doors, because you can be sure about one thing. I mean, this is not going to be the last time that they do this. If I'm a potential migrant who wants to come to Europe, now, where will I go? Well, there is one country that doesn't let you in, and there's another country that basically legalizes 500,000 every year. So where are you going to go? It's going to be Spain. And I have to admit, I mean, if this is not, I mean, scheme is the wrong term. If this is not obviously an attempt to bolster the future voting potential for Spanish left wing, I don't know what else it is going to be.
It seems like a national act of self-harm, as far as I can tell, but also potentially European harm, because there might be people who go, right, we can go to Spain because that way we can get a European passport, and that way we can go anywhere we want in Europe because of Schengen.
Yeah. No, it's even worse than this, right? Just to remind your viewers, this edict was basically done in circumvention of the Spanish parliament. It was a so-called royal decree. What? So this was something done by the government and the king, if you will, and the actual voice of the people was entirely ignored. So if there is, you know, the EU always says, if you don't follow the rule of law, there will be punishment and there will be sanctions and funds will be withheld. If you circumvent your own parliament to open up the doors to mass migration, you know, shouldn't maybe the EU look into this? In the defense of the European Parliament, there are some voices who say, you know what, that doesn't look right, and it isn't right. No, you're absolutely correct on this. I mean, the only good news is apparently with this kind of legalization, they have to stay in Spain for 5 years. But here's the big question. Who's going to control this, right? Once you make it into Spain, you get legalized in Spain. What is stopping you going to, you know, the much more appealing welfare states of Austria, Germany, or Sweden? I don't think there's going to be much.
No, well, exactly. And who are these people? I mean, obviously, Spain doesn't really know who they are, but from what I was reading and looking at, a great many seem to come from countries which, frankly, don't generate refugees. Not in my book, they don't. Pakistan, Bangladesh. It's mad. And it's not like they're getting people who are fleeing Venezuela, let's say, who might have something in common with the Spanish people, like, I don't know, a language. It just seems to be throwing into the middle of your country a lot of people who have no right to be there, who have nothing to do with the culture. And I've just read here, apparently 90% of all new jobs in Spain are now going to immigrants.
Well, I mean, points to honesty for the Spanish. They never called it the legalization of refugees. They were talking about migrants in general. So, which, by the way, has always been the pattern in Europe. And I don't want to be polemic here, but this has always been the case. We have completely mixed up the distinction between asylum seeker, refugee, economic migrant, you name it. It was pretty much, if you can get your feet on European soil, you are more or less in. Yes, I know there is the occasional deportation, and like the super career criminal after 6 rapes sometimes then get sent back, maybe, and then they come back because they go through all the, you know, legal instances they can. But overall, once you're here, you cannot go. And by the way, which is also ironic, because Pedro Sanchez, he said, well, we need these people because they're doing all the jobs and the work that Spanish won't do. So in a sense, he's saying we need a legal slave class now that does all these works apparently, and they are paid so not handsomely that Spanish people no longer want to do those jobs.
Now, I've been wanting to catch up with you for ages, Ralph, ages. You've been hard to pin down because I really wanted to ask you about the Hungarian elections. There are a lot of people going, ha, Yabu sucks, bye-bye Orban. That was Trump and Vance's pick and he didn't get in. Snuff, snuff. And yet, from what I can tell, his successor isn't that wildly different.
Well, that remains to be seen. There are two things to look at. Now, one is, yes, in certain areas of domestic policies, this is not going to be a shift towards the left. But of course, what Viktor Orban and Hungary did was much more, right? They created an entire conservative ecosystem in Europe. They created institutions. They funded speakers. They funded think tanks. And Peter Magyar, the incoming prime minister, has already said he's going to do away with all of this. So will he govern Hungary in a conservative fashion? Most likely, yes. But will he continue to, let's say, support conservative movements all throughout Europe in the way in which Viktor Orban did it? That's probably a no.
Well, don't you worry, Ralph, because I'm generating a plan that people like you and I are going to move to Benidorm now. Would you be up for that?
Oh, absolutely.
Great. I think you could, be the professor of lager. You're an Austrian. I'm sure you know about beers. No, but
that should work. That should work.
How does it feel though in Hungary? Because it did feel like a bit of for the right wing movement, we have lost one of our big beasts basically from the political ecosystem of Europe. Is there how does it feel among Hungarians? Is there? It's like we were saying, it's not as if you've got Pedro Sanchez now.
No, and I mean, just as a reminder for your viewers, I mean, I remember, I think Margaret Thatcher was in office for 11 years, and then she was followed by John Major for 7 years. So the Tories at that time have been in charge for around 18 years. Viktor Orban was in charge for 16 years. The only politicians that have been in office at similar length were Angela Merkel and Helmut Kohl. There is kind of almost a natural rule in democracies. If you are in power for almost 2 decades, people want a new face.
Yeah.
And this, as you correctly said, people didn't vote for new policies. They wanted a new face with the same policies.
Well, there you go. Well, fingers crossed. You'll have to keep us updated on how things are going over there in Hungary under the new, aptly named Magyar, which I think means Hungary in Hungarian. Ralph, thank you ever so much. It's always great to speak to the brilliant Ralph Schallhammer. Right, it is the moment that avid fans have been waiting for because he's somewhere in the building, which means he's going to be in the studio soon. It's going to be Mr. Paul Cox for a little bit of extra bonus Weird Hour.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh no! You can tell this is mad. You can tell that whenever
Did you find this?
Yeah, I did find that.
Yeah, wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know this. Broughton
no.
is kind of between Winchester and Salisbury.
You do realise we are on air?
Are we?
I just love the way we sort of constantly crash land into this. We get so excited
I'm
about
so
seeing
sorry.
each other.
I'm sorry, Dean.
Dean's really off the boil tonight anyway. I don't know what it is with Dean. He's barely doing the job. Every time I try and speak to him, he's not there. So all sorts of funny things have gone on so far because he's clearly not pressing the right buttons. What should we talk about then?
Well,
we'll
I
get
think...
onto the dead hairs later.
We should
do some
definitely
news
do that.
first.
I'm just trying to think, what did I say? Luckily, I was very, very polite. I was very polite in front of Alex. Well, we've got no choice, have we? But I think that we're going to get onto the F-bomb rant between...
Shabana Mahmood. Morgan McSweeney?
Morgan McSweeney.
Who's being effing off at who? That's what I want to know.
No one's surprised that he F's off. But when they were trying to get through Mandelson's security checks, he was through to the Foreign Office just saying, look, just flipping do it. I assume that's what the F means. It's all asterised out, so I think it means flipping.
I reckon it means foxglove.
Foxgloving. It sounds like something you do in your neck of the woods.
No, don't you ask about the foxgloving. No one needs to know about that. But to me, the most wild part of all of this, I mean, the Mandelson stuff is just, however much the Prime Minister tries to squirm about this, it's like, mate, you chose him, you appointed him, and it was a bad idea.
Yeah, let's get this absolutely right. Other than the fact that he was trying to sort his friends out elsewhere, Peter Mandelson was Keir Starmer's #1 pick. He wasn't him pushed through whatsoever. He had Morgan McSweeney all over it, making sure it happened. He knew full well that he had a relationship with Epstein. He knew full well that relationship with Epstein had continued. He basically was putting a snake inside the snake pit, is what he thought. And I don't necessarily think that's true, because I don't think they take Trump seriously enough if they think you need a scoundrel to manage Trump.
I think you've got quite a positive spin on this. I actually think it's darker. I don't think the red lines were about Epstein at all. I think this is all about funny dealings with China.
Well, that's the other thing.
Security threats from hostile regimes.
I don't know if our viewers and listeners are aware. I'm sure you are, but Mandelson was a member of the Communist Party for 15 years. Not 15 months while he was at university. For 15 years.
The Communist Party.
Yes,
of Great Britain. Not the one of Russia, not Lenin's.
No, and the accusation is that it's connected to the Soviet Union, it's connected to the Chinese Republic. Yes, because, of course it is, because at that point...
They're communists!
Because I think Peter Mandelson's 200 to 300 years old, so he's known all of those great leaders. He is, though, isn't he? He just hangs upside down to sleep at night. And someone tickles him.
That's why he's constantly wearing some sort of terry toweling bathrobe, because he's always come out of some sort of age rejuvenation.
That's such a good point. He's never outside of he's always in his pants or in a dressing gown.
Yeah.
That's totally unnecessary.
Isn't it true, though, isn't it? I feel like I've never seen any other politician in a dressing gown, but Peter Mandelson, do you have any other clothes?
No, it's all banana benders and...
But what's really weird about all of this, though, Starmer's going like, no, I don't want cronyism and jobs for the boys. And then it's all of a sudden he's got like his PR director who, has to lose his job because he went out campaigning with a man charged with paedophilia. Bad idea, PR director. You'd think that would be your sort of #1 check. Won't look good on the optics. And it's like, well, you might have to go somewhere else. I know. I'm going to phone the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office and say, where can we send him to get a cushy job as an ambassador? You don't just like give some, person. It doesn't matter how great your PR man was. You don't go make him the ambassador somewhere. That's what, the president of some weird, tiny African non-democracy might do. But you don't. Like, who does that?
It's given us a little peek behind the curtain as well. It's inextricably linked to Tony Blair and New Labour. That the emperor, the dastardly dictator of New Labour, right the way from 1992, long before Tony Blair and Brown were together. In fact, he put them together as a political unity and said, this is the way we're going to go now. He wanted to change Labour. It couldn't stick the old way. They wanted to become more Europhile. They weren't. Remember Labour? Jeremy Corbyn, for instance, they weren't interested in Labour.
Jeremy Corbyn was an actual
original
campaigner,
Brexiteer.
the original Brexiteer with Tony Benn.
Tony Mandelson. What a daft, imagine that. Right.
Oh, what a chimera.
Yeah.
Whose head, whose body? I tell you what would be the ultimate horrible... Do you ever play that game where you sort of fold up the bit of paper and someone does the head and the shoulders and the legs? I love that game. But the ultimate monster combination would be mullet. COVID mullet of Blair. I still
Oh my
do you remember
God.
that thing?
Yeah, he looked terrifying in that, didn't he? Literally like stroking a cat.
It was really the most horrible. Like, why was Cherie Blair not cutting it?
But so Mandelson is inextricably linked to New Labour. He is New Labour, and therefore it's a hark back with Keir Starmer, who's in control here. And Morgan McSweeney was trying to drag Keir Starmer away from Corbyn. They did that knowing the only way they know, which is to drag them towards the blueprint of Blair. Blair was in the background. Mandelson was in the background. I'd imagine Gordon Brown is well out of it, but Mandelson was definitely waiting for a job. I mean, that's probably the third top job in British politics under Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary.
It's massive, yeah. Basically, and also at a time when it's like the most critical position to have.
What we learned today, though, have you seen much of the Ollie Robbins?
Well, I woke up this morning and thought, right, I better put that cross-examination on. Honestly, it was... I mean, I'm glad the newspapers picked out the 2 lines that were actually interesting, because otherwise it's 3 hours of my life I'm not getting back.
Yeah, but he did come across... One thing he did come across as is sort of a genuine type of guy, and I don't know if that's true, if he's incredibly good at acting. Do you know what?
He came across as very machine. I am machine, machine does what machine is supposed to do.
Well, you and I, we're not exactly fans of Europe, or the European... We're fans of Europe. I'm going to Brussels tomorrow, actually.
No!
Yes, I am. We'll talk about it later. I'm standing for, European Parliament. I'm not.
Right.
No, I'm not.
Why are you going to
I'll tell you in the break.
Why can't you tell it on air?
Because I'll be doing... because of all the stuff that I'll be doing out there.
Oh, okay.
I'm not. I'm going on... It's just me and my daughter. Because my daughter's doing A-level in art and graphic design, and she's very interested in comic type art.
Like the Tintin Museum and the
so
comic
all
book
that sort of stuff's there. I'm interested obviously in the political side of things, so I managed about 6 months.
Have you been before?
Never. Bad, good, indifferent? I know you spent a lot of time there. I'm only there 2 nights.
There.
Yeah, of
I
course
lived there
you did,
almost 4 years.
And what did you make it
You
of?
don't know. Oh, they're the Badlands.
They're the Badlands.
They're the Badlands, son. No, I'll tell you what. So you go to Grand Place.
Yeah.
Sit in the square.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's stunning.
The
Get
weather's
a
good this
big
week.
bowl of moule. There's a really good one in there. You can, there's some nice one decking out the front. Just go there, get a look. The Belgian beer is a chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Go to Delirium where they brew all the beer. It's just got more beers than
Sounds
anywhere
good.
else in the whole world. It's amazing. I'll give you all the beers you've got to drink. I'm going to try and basically make sure that you get so drunk that you can't leave Grand Place. Because if you try to do that,
Beyond there's rubbish, is it? It's just a city I've never been to.
Imagine the worst possible... You know when you see these pictures of America with people living in tents and walking around like zombies and stabbing people and litter and graffiti?
I can't wait.
And it's... I mean, it was a
Worse than Paris?
Oh, yeah.
Because Paris has got some iffy sides.
It was a bit funny when I lived there. COVID made it even funnier, and now it's like migrant crisis, COVID on stage. It's crazy bad.
Perhaps I'll just become an undercover reporter when I'm out there.
Yeah. I would just watch
The Gammon Live.
The Gammon Live.
But what was I trying to say? Something about Brussels. I don't know. But Peter Mandelson... no, Ollie Robbins. 2 things happened today that I never thought would ever happen. I felt some sympathy towards Ollie Robbins. Yeah. And that's what I was talking about. Europe.
Brexit and all that.
And for a moment, I quite liked Emily Thornberry.
Oh, me too. I was like, because normally I'm just like, oh, that woman grinds my gears more than most. But when she's really taking them to task, you could tell that she really delighted in saying the F word.
Yeah,
she loved it, didn't she?
I'll tell you what she doesn't like. Keir Starmer. This is revenge. She fancied a place in that cabinet. She thought she'd be the Attorney General. She wasn't. He gave that to one of his mates.
It's like the other day I found myself loving John McDonnell and Diane Abbott.
Yeah.
I'm like...
Yeah.
What's going on?
Because what's that phrase about united against the one enemy?
My enemy's enemy is my friend. Or
That's it.
Something like that.
You're the journalist. I'm just the Wally. But I'm entertaining, so that's okay. And obviously extremely good looking and
all of those things.
Athletic.
Yeah.
I remember you were saying how athletic I am. Actually, the other day during Weird Al plug, you laughed when I said I enjoyed PE. I was still laughing about it on the way home. I was like, oh my god. You were like, what? All the glasses and that? I was like, I imagined you imagining me as a 9-year-old boy looking like this. Imagine
Did
if
you not? You
no,
actually
I was
like
fit.
You kind of were like fit.
No, well, both. I don't know.
Fit,
I don't know if 9-year-old boys can be fit. You know.
Oh, that's true.
Maybe there's some labouring piece.
Yeah. Oh gosh. But no, it's true. I can't. But you actually kind of look like a 9-year-old boy now. That's also astonishing to imagine. You were like some sort of strapping athlete at school.
I was a footballer, a runner. I was pretty good at short distance. Not too bad.
Well, are you saying Bolt?
All right, let's not over-egg it.
I thought then you go, but oh yeah, I quite liked PE because we had, like, I don't know, croquet or something.
No. I went to a comprehensive school 10 miles north of Portsmouth. We did not have croquet. They wouldn't give us mallets for a start. I've actually got a scar on my finger from playing touch rugby because I got into a fight playing non-contact rugby. And I punched a boy in the face.
Did you?
And straightened his tooth.
You straightened his tooth?
I met him about 20 years after we left school when he said that I saved his parents thousands of pounds with that
Did you get like a puncture wound from the errant tooth?
I've still got it. Wow. So you don't get that from...
I love the
it was in earlier. Charlie was in earlier. He hasn't got a story like that, has he?
No, he ain't got a story like that.
No.
I think he's got some stories from Benidorm, though, but he's not going to share them.
Yeah.
He ain't going to share them.
I didn't imagine he would go to Benidorm on holiday.
He does not look like a Benidormist.
No.
Not
I wonder
want
if it
to
was
judge
some sort
people on their Benidorminess, but
I don't want to judge him, but they all sound very posh to me. Everyone does, though, when I really think about it.
Yeah, you sound quite posh to me.
Do I? Well, I am, actually, and I'll tell you about the time I played rugby at school. That was just one time I had one fight. Now, what was I going to say? Peter Mandelson, bad. Keir Starmer, bad.
All of it, bad. On that, the thing is, I don't know if I can keep talking about Peter Mandelson. I've said it's 2 days, 3 days, 4 days of Mandelson.
But if he brings down Starmer, are we going to be happy?
No, I don't know. I'm so conflicted. I'm in a state of what's it called when you've got two competing truths that are sort of against each other?
Cognitive dissonance.
Right. Exactly. Because on one hand, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for that man to go. He's the root of all evil. And on the other hand, I'm like, oh my gosh, Prime Minister Ed Miliband.
Well, I was listening to that on the way in. I always fear it's Ed Miliband as well. A lot of people say, oh my God, Angela Rayner, which is definitely a possibility, by the way.
That's actually, actually now, Starmer went and was replaced by Rayner. I'm beginning to think it'd be so comical, and it can't be worse than it is now, because what we actually have in Starmer, people are like, oh, he's a muppet, oh, he's not very political, he's made bad decisions. I actually think he's scarily competent. Yes. When you see how much his government's been able to do in just 2 years. Just 2 years. They've done things in 2 years that takes most governments 10 years. This is what Labour's good at doing. They always know they're going to be like a one term or something. So like, yes, rush everything through. Let's smash the place up permanently as much as possible.
And my theory is that he will hang on because there's enough people that support. There's obviously a background task going on, aligning us more with Brussels, aligning us more with the EU and policy. And often people say, well, one government can't tie another government. Look, you know how difficult it is to get out of EU policy. Once you sign up...
I know why you're going to Brussels. You're the successor to Ollie Robbins, aren't you?
I'm going for the chips and mayonnaise is where I'm going. I hear it's good.
We got some breaking news, by the way. Big breaking news, so big that Dean's put it in such big letters with a bright green highlight. Feel like I've entered into the Twilight Zone. The breaking news is Donald Trump says he is extending the ceasefire after saying that he wasn't going to extend it, and J.D. Vance never got on the plane to Islamabad. Well, apparently he's giving Iran a bit more time.
I don't know what to make of that. I'm getting to a point now with it's a bit like the Mandelson thing where it's like, I'm no war hawk, but I now want him to either stop doing it or start an all-out ground offensive and just get on with it.
I must admit, I kind of think he should get on with it a little bit, because Iran, you can't negotiate with Iran. We spent decades trying to play that game, decades with the JCPOA. Oh, let's be soft. Okay, we're not going to create nuclear weapons. but we're going to create nuclear weapons. You can't negotiate with theocratic terrorists.
No, you cannot. And
finish the job.
If his legacy is that he managed to destroy their capability for a couple of years, that's no legacy.
No.
And I fear at the moment that the IRGC is much more powerful than they're allowing us to believe.
Well, what I've read is there is a new leader of the IRGC who's basically running everything now, which is why these negotiations aren't going anywhere, because they keep sending some geezer from Parliament called Bagheera or something.
Yeah, he's like the head of Parliament or
the head of
Chief Whip or something.
Normal mess or something, I don't know. He just goes over there and the IRGC are, you know, basically, yeah, stay in Islamabad. If you come back, we're going to pull out your eyeballs. Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's no point negotiating with this geezer. He's probably got no authority because the IRGC just want to destroy everything, destroy Israel, destroy the West, get a nuclear weapon. I don't know how many times the West has to go through this monkey dance. I'd have just invented that as a term.
If you hadn't have laughed, I wouldn't have laughed, and we could have both just nodded and gone, yes.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Both of us did PPE at Cambridge and Oxford. So.
Why does it always come back to monkeys?
I don't know.
Why?
Simeon.
Not the no, don't.
I can't say it.
But I don't know why we do this. It's like every time you people go two-state solution, you're like, by the way, you do realise that Hamas doesn't want a two-state solution.
Of course not.
They want a one-state solution. They want to get rid of all of Israel. So every time you keep putting it on the table, they're not going to suddenly go, that sounds nice. Let's stop now. Put down our tools. Let's stop educating our kids at school that Jews are bad people. Oh, yeah. No, it's the same with the regime of Iran. The people, different story. The regime of Iran. What is the point in sitting there going, let's have a conflab?
Well, I understand the IRGC far more than I understand the people that don't understand why the IRGC are bad, don't understand why what Donald Trump is trying to do is good. I think Donald Trump derangement syndrome comes into this a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's the old adage, isn't it? If he fixed child cancer, people would say we need child cancer back because we don't want Donald Trump to fix it.
But then the other interesting thing about Donald Trump, right, is, I mean, clearly, I think the main thing is he doesn't want body bags. And good on him for not wanting body bags. America's done it as much as it can do in many respects via air war without sort of committing what are considered war crimes, you know, targeting civilian infrastructure and stuff. They've bombed the heck out of a lot of the places they can legally bomb the heck out of. And so now Iran is, you know, playing games over the Strait of Hormuz. They were always going to do that. Frankly, they were doing that, you know, in part before any of this happened via the Houthis. And so the next step is the ground invasion or something similar, which will lead to casualties and get messy, become a war of attrition, losing popularity. But it's not just that. It has to really work if you're going to do it. But I would say this. Donald Trump saying we're extending the ceasefire could mean B-1 bombers taking off from Fairford as we speak.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
You just have no idea. Yes. And this is what I was going to say about Starmer earlier. These people are often not what they say they are. Starmer often talk to... It's like... The way I equate this is like male feminists. If someone keeps telling you they're a male feminist, watch out for them.
They're doing a monkey dance.
Watch out. They are doing a monkey dance while you're having a shower through the window. I'm not sure what any of that means, but, you know...
They are.
They
male
absolutely
feminists,
are.
really, there's nothing that makes
But Keir Starmer is a dodgy, sinister worm.
He is. He's monkey dancing the whole nation. We're going to take a short break, and talking about monkey dancers, we're going to be discussing Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart, as well as the goings on of the occult conducted by Mr. Cox. That's after this.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I am staying.
What's that, Paul?
Are we on air again?
I love doing that too. When you don't have an earpiece in, I love playing that game now.
So sorry, Dana.
It's like, but you weren't actually speaking. You were sort of just looking up his hotel booking in Brussels. Yeah. I was going to tell him how likely he is to be stabbed. Which, by the signs of it, he said, I'm going to be staying near the actual station. I'm like, big bad move. Bad mistake.
Stab de la Mer, 3 stars as
Yeah, that's the. Do you want to stay down near Midi? That is fresh down those parts.
No, we're not Midi. We're not Midi. That does sound dodgy.
All right.
I don't want to say because people are following me there. Actually, they won't, will they? Because after watching Us, there's no way anyone's going to Brussels this week other than me.
Well, do you know what? There are some good elements to it. I lived there for 4 years, and there's some.
The hotel room's nice, so what I might do is just lock us in that. Look out the window.
Just the beers are great. The beers are amazing. I'm going to give you a whole tour. Don't you worry. I'm not coming with you. I could come with you. I could not work tomorrow. I could come in the morning and make it back for the show with a time difference.
Why not?
Yeah. But no, I'll give you a list of the things to see and the places to avoid because my gosh, you need it. Anyway, we're not here to plan your trip in front of the audience. Let us talk about, done that one, let's talk about this. I love it when J.K. Rowling comes out on the attack because she got so harried and monstered by all these trans-loving people, and yet she would just turn around and just go like a giant finger crushing a mosquito. And basically she's had this online spat with misogynist Alistair Campbell, has dared him to debate 4 women in Scotland because of course, in the comfort of their nice, easy, breezy, we always know everything, we get everything right, nothing. They have been, bashing the TERFs. And they sort of said, well, why don't you come on Funkcast then? And she's like, I'm not going to go on your podcast to try and get you more numbers. If you want people to sensibly talk about this issue, why don't you have 4 women in Scotland on who did the whole High Court campaign?
Smashing bunch. Have you ever met any of them?
Yeah.
They are great.
They're amazing. And they, it's just a group of relatively ordinary women who have massively radically changed what was a really disgusting and scary direction of travel in the United Kingdom. But Grace, who's Alistair Campbell's comedian daughter, the nepotism, nothing funny about her, blasted the group as being, she said awful, I haven't got the exact quote, but it just says ugly.
Yeah, she kept calling him ugly.
And other things. I mean, it is misogynistic. It's horrible. And I have got no love for Alistair Campbell. He almost punched me in the face.
Did he?
He did.
I want to say publicly I absolutely detest Alistair Campbell. I think he's one of the most insidious characters to have infested our politics in the last 30 years. Genuinely. His role in the Iraq War was disgusting. The way he's behaved over the years is disgusting.
I can't believe, in many respects, because if someone on the right wing had done half the things that he is accused of doing, they would not be rolled out around television studios, given podcasts, the fanfare. It's amazing. I remember, so I went on Newsnight once, and I was on with Alistair Campbell. And I was on there.
remember that.
Right. I was on there as a former Brexit Party MEP, sat in that parliament. In fact, you know, my lineage to that point had been working very closely with UKIP, the Brexit Party, all of that stuff. I know my onions about Europe.
Yes.
I really do. And I sat there, and as soon as I came in, he was already quite demeaning, a bit like, why am I on with her?
He's a big man, isn't he?
Yeah, he's big.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, his attitude is a bit like, why am I on with her? Who is she? You know, she's not worthy to have a sensible conversation with her, this stupid little girl. And so I was sitting there, and I was talking about, you know, the problems with EU legislation is it just gets bunged up in our own legal system. There isn't a direct recourse from voters about whether we want this or this. And he was trying to tell me that that wasn't the case. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I was an MEP. I know that I did not get to propose or amend legislation. MEPs don't. It's all done by the Commission, imposed upon Britain. The voters have no direct connection to it. So we're having this debate, and he was sort of trying to, he said, dear, or something patronising. He was really trying to sort of, you know, make out like I was an idiot who didn't know what I was talking about, and it wasn't working. And what's her name? Newsnight host. I really like her, actually.
Which one?
Victoria Derbyshire. Thank you. I was having a blonde moment. She sort of pulled him up on it and said, you know, careful how you speak. And he then turned on her. You let people like this onto the show. It was really just aggressive and rude because he had lost the argument, basically. But then as the show was coming to an end, they were panning the camera. And Alistair Campbell had a mic, you know, lapel mic. He was taking it off. I was sitting right next to him on the sofa. And he was like doing this. And really, his finger, his fist was about, you know, I could feel the hairs of my nose in contact with that fist. And then he storms out. And the clip goes viral. And then Victoria Derbyshire after couldn't have been nicer. The whole team of Newsnight, the editor, everyone's out the gallery. Are you okay? We're so sorry. That should never have happened. Well, he can be a bit like that. And they were even shaking. Do you know what I mean? Because they were like, oh my goodness, this is terrible what's just happened. And I was just like, okay, fine, whatever. But then the man became so weirdly obsessed with me and started looking at everything I'd ever done and trying to set Twitter trolling against me. Like, he couldn't let it go. It was odd. It was bullying. And that's when when they sort of suggested to me, well, you know, we're sorry about that. No, he's like... I was like, why did you let him into studios then? And it was somebody who basically sort of said to me at one point, well, one of the worst parts of all of this is the sort of whole David Kelly Frory. Can you imagine if something like that was hanging over someone's head on the right wing?
And that's what I meant about the Iraq War stuff. More so than the dodgy dossier, the lying, the way it affected people. And at the time, way back, like 97 till about 2002, I was a Blairite. You know, I was 18 to 23 years old. That was my idealistic period. And Alistair Campbell was the spin doctor of all spin doctors.
Yeah,
and I
very effective in his job. He's
I very much bought it all hook, line and sinker as well, which I'm happy to admit because, you know, it's all life is a bit of a progression, isn't it?
Most of the country bought it hook, line and sinker.
But Alistair Campbell, you just summed it up, actually. What an incredibly bullying character. Every story about him is him bullying. Yeah. Every story about him is someone apologising or appeasing. Oh, he's a bit like that. You don't accept that in any relation. That's you know, if that was a domestic violence situation, you just went, oh, you know, Trev's a bit like that. If I went
onto Politics Live or Newsnight and did to someone else what he did to me, they would never rebook me, ever.
No, it's because he's Alistair Campbell. Yeah. And that's why Rory Stewart teamed up with him. That's why. And do you know what?
Rory Stewart's gone mad.
Well, he was always mad. I think
he was a bit mad.
All we've done now is he's just been. You know, he was very close to becoming. Yeah, head of the Tories, wasn't he? And potentially
I remember that leadership election when he sort of kept taking off his tie and perching on the edge of the stool like this when everyone was sort of sat
you suddenly realised he was like
odd.
A small man.
I think in some respects, I quite like him, though, because when I've met him, he's always been very gracious, very nice.
Well, that's nice to hear.
Clearly not.
And you can't always judge everybody by the way they appear on screen, trust me.
No, yeah, we're lovely.
But Alistair Campbell is a nasty, nasty man. There's no two ways about it. And it's no surprise that Grace Campbell is this kind of sneering, elitist character, a Nepo baby that has been handed all sorts of open doors to help her out.
Yeah.
You know, I never, ever talk down to anyone who's in comedy at all, because I appreciate everybody doing it. But there's no way that Grace Campbell would have had the opportunity she did if Alistair Campbell wasn't her dad.
I think
It's
that's probably
impossible.
true. Yeah.
Okay, and when you're in an industry where you literally everybody has to start at the bottom to work their way up, with the exception of very few. Jack Whitehall was a few, but even Jack Whitehall had to do the new act competitions and come through the open mic circuit. His dad was obviously an incredibly famous agent, and that helped.
Yeah.
But he was also very talented, Jack Whitehall.
Yeah.
But Grace Campbell lacks the talent and was given all these open door opportunities, and now she's on these podcasts sneering. By the way, talking to a man.
Yeah.
You know, a pretty man with makeup on, but and that's how I would describe her. For him, and they were. It was pure and utter misogyny.
It was hatred. Yeah, it's disgusting. Now, I've really got one more minute before our next break, because I've really got to squeeze in this story. So I remember one of the first weird hours. Maybe it was the first weird hour. I don't know. But I was trying to tell you that you don't know Hampshire. You might live there. You might be from there.
Yeah.
You don't know Hampshire. Because I was telling you that weird things happen.
Yes, you
like
were.
people like nail rabbits to primary schools. And
I went, don't be
you know,
ridiculous.
do that sort of weird six-pointed star on sheep and stuff like that. I was like, it all goes mental down there. And you're like, what? Right. A man has dumped the bodies of 50 hares outside a village shop before stuffing a dead kestrel and a barn owl under the door handles. That's literally today's news.
It is today's news.
And he also tore or ripped the body of one of the hares in half, blood dripping on the floor, and wipes the shop front with the blood.
By the way, my laughter
50 dead hares.
is not at the dead animals. It's just at the utter ridiculousness of this. This is
The laughter's clearly at the kestrel and the barn owl under the door handle.
This is in Broughton, by the way, which is a lovely little place halfway between Salisbury and Winchester. He's actually been charged with some acts under the Wildlife and Countryside Act.
Yeah, what's so funny is they
Possessing
kind
a
of
dead
basically
bird.
they punished. We don't really know how to charge him because we don't know what his motivation is. It's like, well, I don't know who wakes up in the morning and goes, oh, first of all, how do you access 50 dead hares?
It's excessive, isn't it?
It's quite a lot of dead hares.
It's not. I would say this isn't his first rodeo.
That's more than
it's
a
not
night's
his
work.
first rodeo. You don't start off with 50 hares and a kestrel and an owl. You know, if you're going to do this.
How do you get them?
I don't know.
I don't want to know. I don't want to get
All
them.
I do know is when you're at the novice level, you haven't got access. You don't know how to get hold of these 50 hares.
No.
So you have to work your way up. So I would start pinning other crimes on him.
Yeah, I think, you know, maybe there's a hair coursing going on. Maybe the shopkeeper's going to dob him in or dobbed him
Not
into
easy
the
to
police.
catch either. Famously very fast. Bigger than a rabbit.
Big.
Yeah. You ever seen a... Have you ever seen a hare? What a stupid question.
I have actually. I live in the countryside now. Get a lot of that business.
Yeah.
I like it. I like hares.
They're
nice. They're sort of like, they're rabbits, but they're not so cute. They're rabbits that
they
look
mean business.
intimidating.
They're getting somewhere. That's the thing with a hare. You're like, where are you going, mate? You know, just chill out a little
They're
bit.
like the Alistair
It's almost like
Campbell
the
of the
shops are
rabbit
about to close.
They're
Chill
like
out.
rabbity bullies.
Yeah, but, you know, race against a tortoise, they sit back on their laurels and lose the race.
Yeah, arrogant. See? Arrogant bullies.
Arrogant
That's what I'm
hares.
saying.
Well, I'm glad 50 of them are dead.
Yeah, same about the kestrel and the barn owl under the door.
How do you get hold of a kestrel? By the way,
I don't know.
All three of these things, not easy to catch. I mean, I've spent many an evening running around my garden.
Do you now consider yourself, after I told you that this went on in Hampshire, do you consider yourself duly corrected?
Yes, I am duly collected, but collected? But like the rubbish. It's Thursday. No, I am, but
the dead carcasses.
At that point, you didn't realise how weird I was. We didn't know Weird Al was a thing. That was at the very, very start of the weird times. So I was measuring myself against my own weirdness. You said you come from a weird place. I'm like, that's not that weird. There's 50 dead hares in the shop.
Is there like eras of like BW and AW?
we just we're walking through. I don't know where we are at now, but
we're AW plus 3.
Yeah.
3 AW.
Yeah.
After weird, that is.
Yeah.
Or are we post weird or just in weird?
I think we're the epicentre of weird.
Yeah.
People need to call in. Don't call in. That's ridiculous. Send us a message.
Now, do you know what? We've got a break now because I've got a really exciting guest doing some really cool stories after this.
Wow.
Really cool. So we're going to box it up. We're going to 3 box, as they say in the biz.
I'm part of that.
And, yeah, because there is a couple of news stories I spotted. I was like, I've got to do this. One is people who claim to have found the remnants of Noah's Ark actually on top of Mount Ararat, where one would expect to find it. Another, which is someone hinting that the Great Pyramid may have been built by a lost civilization. I love that stuff anyway. But the fact that we've got a fresh headline on it, I'm like, let's get into it. So that's what we're going to be doing after this break.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
500 quid for 2 nights, but I thought... It's not on air again, are we?
500 quid for 2 nights. There we go.
That's what it cost to have me. That would be very cheap, actually.
Oh, I love it. You talk so animatedly, and I just sort of think, I'm not going to let him stop. Let's just see. We're sharing is caring, right?
Sharing is caring. Just not everything on national telly.
Well...
Why not, eh? The viewers love it.
Not quite everything. Right, now, let's get into these 2 stories, because they're both exactly the sort of thing that tickle my inquisitive fancies. And we've got a brilliant historian, Martin Whittock, on to demystify, or potentially not demystify, some of the things that have been floating around in the press today. Now, this one really excites me. This is that in the high mountains of Turkey, a mysterious geological formation sits that some researchers believe could be the remains of Noah's Ark. It's a team of American researchers working near Mount Ararat, which, according to the Bible, that's where the Ark ended up. And what they're doing is using sort of technology to do sort of ground surveys and think they found bits and bobs which suggest it, well, could be Arky. Let's speak to Martin Whittock now. Hi, Martin.
Good evening. What an incredible story. I was fascinated when you sent me the link to it and I was looking into it. 3 things sort of struck me about this.
Yeah.
The first thing is, obviously, I've not had access to the data of these people, but it didn't half look like a geological formation to me, i.e. something natural but a rather strange shape and boat shaped. And I think that's the first problem. As I looked at their data, I thought, this doesn't half seem like a natural formation, albeit in a rather boat shape. That was my first thought.
Yeah.
My second thought was, and this is perhaps a bit more fundamental, is I think it's kind of approaching the whole situation from the wrong sort of angle. I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm a person of faith. I have great respect for the texts of my faith, Old Testament and New Testament. But to be blunt about it, my understanding of this is that your Genesis is not a scientific textbook. You know, it's not a geological textbook. It's a book that has amazing poetic power to explain the origins of life, where God's about, the consequences of sin, that kind of thing. And I think the problem with people doing this is they're putting an awful lot of archaeological effort and scientific effort into trying to prove something that I think has poetic meaning that doesn't necessarily have left something in the archaeological record. And I think that's a problem. So, for example, with Noah's Ark, there's this idea of the consequences of sin, the destruction of people who are sinful, the fact that God actually does love the rest of creation, though, and wants it to start again, makes a new covenant with people. And that's the nub of the story, not can you actually find the timber and can you actually attest to where the decks were on the original one. And the third thing about the Noah's Ark thing, of course, is it isn't actually unique in that sense to the Bible, because in fact we know, for example, that this sort of myth, this idea of a great flood. And remember, of course, that Mesopotamia, Euphrates and the Tigris area was the cradle of much of this culture, was very famous for its flooding, for example. So flooding would have been very much on the minds of people who were putting together these texts, certainly in Mesopotamia, and those ideas then got taken into what we now call modern Israel, Palestine area, later than that. And we find it, for example, in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So we have people talking about these ancient stories. And I think what we have in Noah's Ark, for example, is people taking something that was common to people of their own time and saying, look, you know about this, I know about this, but I want to tell you there's a different take on this, there's a different spin on this, there's a different message to take out of this. So that becomes then the Noah's Ark story. So my personal feeling is, although obviously, I would be the first to be amazed if they said, we found every deck and every dimension of Noah's Ark. I would have to say, I think they're probably spending their money, and it's usually American archaeologists on this. I know not uniquely so, a lot of money flowing from the States in this area. I think they probably could spend their money more wisely with a greater chance of success.
See, I want it. I just, look, I'm a Christian as well.
Yeah,
and yeah. I always sort of, I get fascinated when you have scientific evidence for things said in the Bible. When I went to Israel, it was amazing. They're sort of uncovering, they're sort of excavating 3 layers down the old city of David. And when we went there, the archaeologist was like, does anyone here read the Bible? And I was like, I do. And weirdly, that morning, I'd been reading Jeremiah, and he wanted to talk about the exact verses I was reading that morning. Crazy coincidence. And he actually had the seal, which was used for the prophet Jeremiah to be arrested from the two named custodians in the Bible, showed me the seal. And I'm like, this is crazy. You know, the fact when you're in Israel, you can walk the Bible, you can go to these sites, and they can uncover archaeological evidence for things that, you know, actually happened. And so when it comes to sort of science versus Christianity, I really like it. I'm intrigued by it, and I want it to win. You know, I want things to be proven. It's a bit like the the Shroud of Turin. I love that Shroud of Turin. I'm obsessed with it. I really, you know, what's your views on the Shroud of Turin, by the way? So we didn't sort of, you know, tee you up for that one, but now we're on the subject.
Yeah, good point, actually. It's really strange, very odd. It does sound like certain things that actually are referred to in earlier texts as well, and yet it really does look to be a 14th century forgery. That's the evidence that I've looked at it. Having said that, the jury is still out because nobody quite knows how it was made. And so I believe in the resurrection. I believe that there was a burst of energy, a powerful event in a tomb, that Jesus was raised. I believe that. You know, I'm a traditional Christian. I absolutely believe that. I'm just not convinced that the Shroud of Turin is that thing. I think it may well be a really impressive relic. But coming back to what you were saying, I agree with you. I mean, there's loads of archaeological support for, you know, the Jerusalem of David, the synagogue at the right sort of level, that Jesus would have preached that in Capernaum, for example. Peter's house, probably was Peter's house. It's from the right date, early tradition. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying these things don't matter. And I'm a historian. I love a bit of archaeology. Got, you know, old stuff that I've sort of dug up as well. I just think that when we go back to the beginning of Genesis, we're probably looking in the wrong sort of area, that we're taking mythology and powerful stories and people saying, well, okay, let's see if we can dig that up and find it. And I think they're going to be disappointed, because I think that's a different sort of question too. You know, was Jerusalem like that in David's time? Were there such a thing as the Philistines? Yes, there were. You know, is the kind of background that we have about Jesus, does it seem to tie in with the kind of things we know from history and archaeology? Yes, it does. The problem is when you get into Genesis, I think you're at the poetic beginnings of Jewish tradition, of course, and Christian tradition. And I think subjecting that to this kind of archaeological exploration is going to be a little bit disappointed. Are you going to find, you know, the fig leaf that Adam and Eve used? Of course you're not, you know, because this is a powerful, powerful symbol, a powerful poetic story. Yeah. And I think you just get disappointed. But I believe that the evidence is there, absolutely. It's not just in my head. I just think they're going to the wrong place in Genesis to try to find that kind of evidence, personally. I can remember somebody once saying that they found evidence at the bottom of the Red Sea for the wheels of Pharaoh's chariots, you know, lost, you know, when the Egyptians were destroyed, when the Red Sea closed and the Israelites crossed. And I remember thinking, oh, guys, surely, you know, life's too short to be trying to find that, because it's not going to be there, is it? You know,
it could be anybody's wheels from any moment in time. Do you know what I mean? Wheels will float around and get lost in the sea.
Exactly.
But you know, it's interesting. We're talking about the Noah's Ark and this sort of allegory of a great flood, which exists across cultures. And good old Graham Hancock, Britain's finest, goes down the narrative of maybe there was a cataclysmic event, and maybe there were civilizations that preceded this cataclysmic event that were extremely advanced, that we don't know anything about because they were lost in this catastrophe. And there we go back to the people who look at the pyramids and go, seriously, you really think some characters in loincloths made that? Because I must admit, when I went around all the sites of ancient Egypt in January, you do look, and to me it's not so much the pyramids, it's when you go to things like the temple at Luxor and you're like, no, they didn't make that all those years ago. Surely not. And now we've got sort of more people who are sniffing around Egypt's Great Pyramid, looking at all these elements. Things are made of rose quartz and potentially had a gold top, and people who think it was some sort of, you know, energy generation system. There's been speculation by the Italian scientist Bionti, I can't remember his first name, that he's found a second Sphinx in the complex. And there's increasingly a growing number of people who say, look, our understanding of ancient history is what we've projected onto it, doing the best we can with the things we found. There's still a whole lot of unanswered questions, and I must admit, when I was in Egypt, looking at things like the pyramids, the Sphinx, but especially the temple, things like that, there was parts of me just going, really? Loincloths and chisels? Really?
I more than understand. Like you, I've been to Giza, I've looked at the Sphinx, I looked at the Great Pyramids, been to the Valley of the Kings, for example, been to Luxor, these kind of places, and they are absolutely stunning. And if anybody has the opportunity to go. They are absolutely amazing. And if you do go, try to use local guides, try to use local people, and put something into the local economy. That's just a little bit for, responsible tourism there. But I think one of the big problems is that people look at these things, and we kind of just assume that people in the past were not capable of doing these things in the way in which Europeans, went to Mesoamerica and said, oh, the people here couldn't possibly have built this stuff in, Mexico and Guatemala, etc., etc. And I think what we fail to understand is that people in the past have often had extremely advanced technologies and extremely advanced organizational skills. And we just don't always take that really into account. And the other thing is what I remember is two things, really, that basically, remember, this is a time before health and safety at work. So a huge bunch of people may have died in the making of that. What mattered was it was made. And the other thing we forget is the values of people in the past. When Pharaoh sat down to plan out the Great Pyramid at Giza, nobody came to him and said, Pharaoh, we've done a lot of focus group work, and we really think the money would be better spent on 15 new hospitals, a health centre, a bypass for Cairo, and a better water sewage system. Right. Because if you believe that the well-being of the Pharaoh and his eternal dimensions would actually make the Nile rise and fall each year, then you are not going to apply what we call normal cost-benefit analysis. What are you going to do with that?
Netflix and chill. You've got to build a giant structure in the desert,
Yeah. Yeah, it matters. Yeah,
Martin, I've got to leave you now because I've already taken up too much of your time. But I want to keep you forever. Let's speak again. I've got so many ancient world and modern world historical mysteries and science versus so much to talk to you about. So this is definitely not the first and last time. That is, if you would come back at some point. It's been a real pleasure. What do you make of it?
Oh well,
I want that arc to be real.
Martin was so fascinating. I think this comes down to the. I think the problem is, you and I, as people of faith, want science and faith to coexist and mix to the point where the people of science can be won over.
Yeah,
but the whole point in faith is faith. I was talking to a year or so ago, my daughter was talking to me about faith, and some friends of hers were religious, and she was asking me about my faith and stuff like that. And she was saying, "What I'd like to see is proof." And I said, "The point of faith is it faith itself. You are never going to. You are very unlikely to get the proof that you want."
And also, out of all the billions of people on Earth, why should you get it?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And by the way, be wary of those that said they do, because other than Jesus himself, nearly 99.9% of people who said they're a Jesus have been absolute nuts.
Do you think that's what the man in the hairs was doing? Just getting things ready for an arc? Just got a bit heavy-handed.
I was doing him a favour.
Yeah, 50 hairs. Who wants 50 hairs?
But Martin was brilliant, absolutely right.
Wasn't he just?
Really, really good.
I've got to say goodbye to you now, which I hate doing.
No, but I will see you Sunday.
Got to talk about war after the break. I love talking about war. But thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
At least we're back together on Sunday.
We are,
which isn't too long away.
And send me that stuff about Brussels.
Oh, I'm gonna bombard you. If you stay 9 minutes, I'll tell you to your face. You can sit there while I talk war even, up to you. Right, we've got to go to an advert break because after the break, we are doing exactly that. We're speaking to Matt Belinsky, attorney but host of the Prevailing Narrative podcast, talking about the latest from America on Iran. That's after this.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Without further ado, let's welcome Matt Bielinski, attorney, but also host of the Prevailing Narrative podcast. It's amazing to have you on the show, Matt. Now, we were going to talk to you about US troops storming an Iran-linked ship, which Trump said was carrying a gift from China. We don't really know what the cargo is. I think we can imagine what Iran might have been in receipt of. But we've just learnt in the last hour breaking news that the ceasefire is going to be extended, despite threats from Trump that he would begin bombing Iran again. What have you taken to be the latest from the American perspective?
Sure. Well, the last couple of days, people were anticipating that that Envoy Steve Witkoff and other members, or J.D. Vance, another member of the administration, was going to be sent to Islamabad to participate in active discussions with Iranian representatives. That did not happen, of course. Now the question becomes, why did that not happen? The story from the Trump administration is that, and then there is some reason to believe this is credible, is that we don't know who's in charge in Iran because so much leadership chain was killed. And that could very well be the case, because rarely in warfare have you ever seen the top 17, 20, 25 members of both the military and the government chain of command have all been assassinated. And there's some question of who is taking orders from the supreme leader, whether or not the supreme leader is still alive. And it's really, an internal struggle right now in Iran between members of the Iran Revolutionary Guard and other more secular or non-military members. There, the line from the Trump administration is we need to get an actual formal proposal or counter proposal from the Iranians, and we haven't yet because they don't necessarily know who's in charge. So we're going to wait for that. That could be the case.
Is there not a concern here that actually, Iran aren't to be trusted, quite frankly? You can't really negotiate with terrorists. My understanding there's a brand new leader of the IRGC who's a massive hardliner. Is there a worry that continuing the ceasefire is simply allowing Iran to potentially rearm and come back and do something pretty traumatic? They're saying we got new cards, we got new tricks up our sleeves. Good job, I would say, that US troops managed to intercept this boat from China, which may or may not have been bringing what sounds like it could be a cargo of arms to Iran. Is it not a worry, giving them more time?
That's a legitimate worry. The worry about, there's two, that's a bifurcated worry, because there could be a concern that Donald Trump is not genuine in his line that, we simply don't know who the Iranians are, we're negotiating with on the Iranian side. But it's a question of, are we concerned that the Iranians are rearming? Not really so much, because, God, we destroyed so much of their military capability. For them to restock that, those shelves. I mean, that's not, a couple of ships from China getting through. That's a pretty significant operation. More so, a legitimate concern would be that Donald Trump, for domestic reasons, simply doesn't want the war to continue. Yeah. And after he's making promises that, don't worry, everybody, your gas prices are going to drop, over the next 4 to 6 weeks because this war is over, other domestic concerns, that's really Trump's hesitation to, to restart military operations here. And that's problematic. That could be problematic one way or the other, because listen, if you're negotiating with a counterparty and you simply have the unwillingness to make good on your threats, you have a weak negotiating position.
I think you're probably right on that. But let's see what happens. It is not unusual for Donald Trump to say one thing and then perhaps surprise someone by doing quite the opposite. Matt, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the programme, Matt Bielinski. Hello, Mr. Phil Dave. How are you doing?
Hi,
I
Alex
warn you in advance. I think you should bring your blazer in. It's blimmin' cold in here.
It is a bit nippy.
Yeah,
in here, isn't it? It's a bit
few
fresh.
days. There's been days when the air conditioning's broken and it's like sitting in a sauna. And then today, I actually feel I've got icicles growing out of my nostrils.
I was going to ask whether or not you've got any fresh produce behind there that you're keeping, maybe, because that is a good indication of how nippy it is.
It is very cold.
That's right.
Now, we've only got a minute, so tell us what people have got to look forward to.
Carrying on